We'll call to order the March 5th, 2025 Budget Subcommittee meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here and online. We will start with grants and gifts.
Thank you, Chair. So for grants, we have one update on the FY25. So for this fiscal year, promoting safe and healthy learning environments. Bryn Cooper's doing this?
Yes.
So we are eligible. We're applying and hopefully pending final approval, getting a grant for $69,931 to reflect the cost of the proposed training activities and grants in relation to teen mental health first aid. So Bryn is working with the grants office to finalize and hopefully get awarded this grant for, again, $69,931. So when we have a final approval, we will let the committee know. And that, again, is for this fiscal year, so it would need to be expended by June 30. I don't know if there's any carryover provisions. I'm hoping there is.
No, and we applied for 55,000 and pending the award, we're going to get 69, which is very exciting.
When is that decision? When is the decision?
We should know momentarily. I mean, we just got the email yesterday, today, excuse me. But we've been approved, so
Awesome.
yeah, a week.
Some of the things we're looking to do is send staff to trainings for TMHFA, which is Team Mental Health First Aid. So that'll pay the staff to get trained. And then there's other materials and curriculum items associated with the grant. So we can report out a full, in full next time pending approval.
Thank you.
That's important. Next I have under grants and gift is questions have come up around IDA and ESSA. That's ESSA. That's our, entitlement grants, not to get used to ESSER. And the question of, at the national level, what's going on. We don't anticipate the grants going away themselves. However, just giving the economic climate, I think last year we saw a slight decrease in these grants. So we're anticipating that we could see anywhere from 5 to 10% decrease in these grants. And because these grants supplement our budget as we commit activities for next year with the grant funds, we don't know till typically mid-July what we're getting for grant allocation. We would have to absorb any shortfall in the grant into our operating budget. It's typical every year. The grants either go up slightly or they go down slightly, and we just adjust accordingly.
Do we have any staff funded positions based on grants?
Yes.
So when would we know if those, we would just take those on to the operating?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And the question comes up sometimes from staff, just the nature of a position being funded by a grant. To your point, if grant funding goes down, we're absorbing it in the operating budget. Conversely, as the salaries say grow per position, we either have the funds within the grant, or we might switch people out. Positions are protected by CBAs. It's nothing to do with the funding source. That's a great question.
Okay. Keep us posted.
Yep, we'll do for sure. And then under gifts, just following up on the Chapman family, the Murray family gift to Chapman. Had a good meeting today with Town Treasury, and because the nature of the gift coming through GoFundMe, the amount of the gift, we just have to provide GoFundMe with certain documentation from the IRS that proves that we are a public school system. So we're waiting that documentation. It could take a couple weeks, 2 weeks to get that from the IRS. So we've also identified a gift account within our general ledger to account for it. So that's moving along, and family will be at the March 27th school committee meeting. And their question came up, we're getting clarification from legal on just, so we have school committee policy around gifts, but there's a question also came up around regarding the charter and the acceptance of gifts by the town. We think because school department, the school committee oversight, that accepts gifts. I don't think we have to put this in front of council as well, but we're asking that question of legal. So it might be that this just goes on a town council agenda too, to be voted as a received gift. But I think it's more about the expenditure piece of it, but we'll get clarification. So lots going on there. That's all I have for grants and gifts.
Any questions from the committee? Moving on to the athletics budget update.
I'm sorry.
Moving back.
No, audits and reports. I have one thing before the athletics update. So audits and reports. So the only thing I have before we get into our athletics update is you do have, and let me share my screen here. I apologize.
I apologize.
No, I have
Skipped over that.
Get my screen. Let's find it. There we go. Apologize for those at home watching. So the agenda. Here we go. All right. We went through an internal audit from the town for the current fiscal year. So the town auditor did an internal audit of the school department, reviewed payroll, expenses. They did a review of our contracts, revolving funds, assets, which I've mentioned before. And then just in conclusion, positive, no findings, no recommendations, other than having conducted an examination of the documentation provided and verified all pertinent transactions within the Munis system. I have identified no irregularities or matters requiring further attention. All records reviewed were comprehensive, accurate, and demonstrably compliant with established policies and procedures. So thank you to Brian Connolly, who conducted the audit, and thank you to Alyssa. I agree with the town auditor. Commendable cooperation, timely provision of the necessary documents. It's a lot to pull together and supply. When you go through an audit, we go through numerous audits a year. So just wanted the committee to see that and appreciate the work.
I just want to highlight to his last sentence. I extend my sincere gratitude to Miss Alyssa Bossi, finance manager. So
We're a team.
we thank you all for the amazing work you put in.
Great job.
On to, so any questions on the audit? Thank you. On to athletics budget update. Before we do that, we do have an update. A member of the community asked about an update on the scoreboards. So we thought it would be appropriate to report here. So we are moving forward with breaking ground now that the winter's over and the ground's starting to thaw. So in terms of electrical, we've ordered supplies. We've contacted and worked with DigSafe, National Grid, the wiring inspector of the town. So myself, Alyssa, Rob, Steve Riley, Mike Manning, Mike Fiala, working on, as soon as Monday, starting to dig trenching, cognizant of ledge and sprinklers and all that. We've identified a location in left field, left field to install a scoreboard. Alyssa's finalizing the routing of the contract and seeing when we can expect delivery, but that softball field, that softball scoreboard will be happening first, and then subsequent will be the stadium replacement of the scoreboard at the stadium. So the softball field is a new install. That's part of the the project, and the cost is it's the running of the new electrical from the street, the installation of the new scoreboard, and then when we get to the stadium, it's really a replacement. But we still have to meet and look at the, if you want to comment, the existing.
The existing structure that, the infrastructure of whether or not it's going to match the updated scoreboard.
Correct.
So electrical voltage and Wi-Fi, and whatever else has to be hardwired.
The I-beams themselves, and we still use those supports that are.
I'm sure they're hard. Everything that needs to be done.
Yep.
Tornado now.
Yeah. Resistant.
So the goal still is and has been that the softball field scoreboard will happen now, and then sometime summer, fall, the stadium scoreboard will be replaced. We're utilizing the town appropriation of $280,000, which includes around $100,000 for the scoreboards, an amount for electrical, I think it's 13,000 roughly. And
Yes.
then the remaining balance is going towards fencing and backstop replacements at both the softball field and the baseball field. Freshman baseball. Thank you, Rob.
How long is that process supposed to take? Because we're backing up to softball season.
Yep. The school board itself, probably 6 to 8, 10 weeks before it gets delivered.
And that's over, so that's overlapping softball. So it will not be ready for softball season.
Likely not for the first. When's the first game of the home?
Second.
April 2nd.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be ready.
We don't know for sure till we hear from the.
Yeah,
I'm
we
waiting
don't
to hear back from the
get
rep on
delivery date of the
delivery.
school board itself. Once it's here,
It could just,
yeah. won't be-
does it have any impact on the fields for play too?
No, because it's gonna be out past the home run fence,
Okay,
so it won't be, they won't have to take like games off or anything like
Okay.
that to put it up.
Right, so because we're coming from the utility pole from the street outside the fencing area, there could be games going on while they're constructing it.
so it could impact.
No, it won't, so they could play, like they can
Okay.
play. It's not coming, there's nothing trenching coming through the field, nothing interrupting the field itself.
Make
It's
it,
coming from the street to the field.
okay.
The workers might get hit by
The
the
street,
Yeah.
With a set of lights is.
Might, will.
It's the varsity one, the right there on the
Left field.
first one, on your right? Yeah, okay.
And we did get some, cost breaks related to it because Alyssa was able to procure through a consortium we have with MHEC. So the vendor was on that consortium list, so it does actually give us some discounts for the project, so.
Go ahead.
Does this come out of capital?
Yes, so
Just because we're talking budget and we don't have money for a lot of things?
clarification. So a year ago, last budget season, the town appropriated, a capital measure. It's a collaboration between athletics and park and rec to secure a capital measure of $280,000 for the replacement and upgrades of fencing and scoreboards at the high school fields.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question. Are they, are the scoreboards comparable to something that's at Libby Field? Like, are they upgraded from what we currently have?
Certainly upgraded.
Upgraded,
I
but-
don't know about the.
Currently, right now, we don't have a school board at the softball field.
True.
I know.
So it's definitely an upgrade.
I know that, but I
That's a
mean,
yes.
are we like,
From the,
do we go low or do we go high? Like, are we doing like a really nice one or, I mean, the one over at Libby's?
I guess your question, the question might be more about the functionality of the video
Yeah.
display.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Steve and I aren't there yet with the multi-purpose one, just because of the pricing, and it's not about the pricing of the board, but more about the pricing of what might have to be updated to do that underground. So that could be the,
so my path of thought is if we ever got to do sponsors or something where they put their logo or pay to put their logo on there, or, you know what I mean? Like that,
Brian and I talked about this.
Digitally?
Yeah, like, would it have the capability?
yeah, is it gonna have that?
If not
function.
digitally, maybe signage around it,
Around-
things like that. That's what one of the things we talked about this afternoon.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about it later in this meeting too. I'm going to bring it up.
It's just where my brain goes.
Even,
The digital piece.
You're right.
is An initial cost
Mhm.
because it's a little more money, but then you would make money on the digital side.
That's why I'm
Right,
asking.
but even the softball one's gonna be right on Pleasant Street, so there'll be a backside to it.
Right.
We've been talking about how can we get signage on the backside of that people can see from Pleasant Street.
Can I ask a blunt question?
Oh,
What's the delay? What was the delay?
the delay in the installation?
in ordering
Just the
it.
winter.
The whole, was it the
It's been a
winter?
year.
It was, yeah,
I mean, it's the season, the
Okay.
winter.
Kind of embarrassing.
because I feel like we had this conversation a while ago that we promised
Yep.
the softball.
So one of the things that has been part of the delay is the fact that this field itself isn't the school departments. We do use it and we rent it, but there's been a lot of back and forth on, what was the size, what was the dimensions, where it was gonna go, and that's all been nailed down now.
Okay.
There's been a lot of meetings and conversations that probably could have been sped up
Okay,
over the last few months.
thank you. Okay, did you? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that this is another project that did take way too long, and I think we had plenty of time to get it done for the start of the season, so it's my hope that this isn't a pattern in how we execute money that the school committee votes on and releases. Because it is embarrassing to have to go back and tell parents that we gave them a date and then we're not going to hit that deadline again. But I do thank you to Brian and Alyssa for working on this as hard as you did, so thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We're telling them 3 weeks before their season starts that it's not going to be ready. Maybe if we gave them a mid-year update, it might be a little softer blow, but it's a little frustrating to families that they're going to go into the season again without it. Any other questions?
Yes.
Especially the seniors, yeah. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Moving on, now I can move on to the athletics budget update.
Yes, I'm just, which, you want it first? Jen, you want the,
Sure, let's
Data
talk about middle school, yeah.
so I guess, because Rob will go over the athletic budget as a whole, one component. We've talked about the last few meetings and there's some changes that are centered around his middle school, so. You guys want to, Rob and Jenny, want to start with this one? I'll get it loaded for you. Oh. Slideshow. There we go. All right, take it away.
So I included some of Rob's like financials in here, but kind of just the general review of where we are with the new Chapman project. The town really invested in competitive athletics, and we've greatly benefited from it. The kids have had so much fun and it's been great, but that funding has ended. So this is our last year of that money from the town. It was a 3-year gift, we could say, and it was amazing. So now we've been kind of charged with what do we do next? We don't want to completely eliminate competitive sports at the middle school level, but we have to kind of pause and say, philosophically, what are we going to do? How are we going to finance this during a challenging financial time? So Rob and I kind of put together a hybrid model of still maintaining some competitive sports, at least one per season, and then kind of bolstering our middle school intramurals, which would just all be in-house. Right now we're running, for example, intramural volleyball, and we have 100 kids that are doing it. And we had to cap it. We had more interest than we were able to kind of manage in the gym. So I definitely think we would get participation if we did more intramural options. So that's kind of the journey we've been on. And so we kind of came up with this hybrid, still continuing with some competitive middle school teams, but also realizing where we are financially and trying to make some responsible decisions. That money that we received the last 3 years has paid for coaches, buses, officials, and uniforms. We've replaced uniforms each season. And so we're kind of planning moving forward. So that's kind of the general overview. The next slide, Brian, is kind of the enrollment per sport from this past school year. And obviously we haven't done outdoor track, but it's usually about 50. We had 55 kids do cross country, 30 did girls volleyball. Unified basketball is in here. It wasn't competitive, but we had 30 kids that did it. Wrestling, girls basketball, boys basketball just ended after vacation. And then spring track. We are looking forward to having about 50 kids this school year. The next slide. And this is no user fees, everybody's participating. And this was what we came to last budget sub with. I just kind of pasted on here as a reminder. But really, like, how can we be responsible moving forward and how do we do this without fees? You know, we have a lot of Chromebook damage and fee management at the middle school, and it's really hard with 11, 12, 13-year-olds that want to be involved to have a fee affiliated with it. So we really were trying to be creative and looked at surrounding towns and what they were doing for sports and intramurals. And this is kind of where we landed, proposing the competitive sport per season. And then the next slide is the actuals from the rationale, which I already spoke to, but then Rob's slide with the estimated financials for running the competitive sports.
So I think it's important to note that there are two budgets. There is the intramural budget, which lives in the middle school, and there's the athletic budget that lives in athletics. Right now, we spend the $60,000 in middle school sports per year, and we'd be cutting that to the 31,094 or 31.
My estimate was only off by under $20. Yeah.
They can't, I'm sorry.
Oh,
There's two budgets that the middle school lives in. It lives in athletics, and it also lives in Jenny's budget of stipends and intramurals would live within the stipends budget of the middle school, not in athletics. So there are two separate budgets, and I think there's a little confusion around that sometimes.
Next slide.
I think there's, yep. We also talked about our competitive sports being more local. So if we did cross-country and outdoor track, our amazing coach, Andrea Hicks, has really great connections with local towns. So there'd be less commuting and we could have more competitions with local middle schools, which would be great. That's kind of why and most participation in those sports, cross-country, you can have 55 kids running. So that's kind of why we picked those for more participation. Next one. And so these were just some, I put together the intramurals that are already listed in our collective bargaining agreement for stipends. I was talking with some of the coaches, PE teachers about what they want to offer. I think there's a lot of potential here for us to have a robust intramurals and definitely having some site management and kind of working through that. That is something that we changed from our last meeting. So I think field hockey's on there, or we could do flag football. We've talked about a lot of different options, but definitely student interest will be there. Even just for our box, which is kind of open gym right now, we have 50 kids coming Tuesdays and Thursdays. Middle school kids will show up for whatever we're offering. It's also just who's going to run it and when, and what are the time chunks, and making sure we have the gym space, et cetera.
That piece. Do you guys want to go into your slides or?
Subcommittee if they want.
I have a few questions about.
Yep.
So I understand, I'm disappointed again that Unified is not being recognized as an athletic sport. It's a sport. It's not an intramural. It is not an after-school club. It's a sport. If we don't take it seriously at the middle school level, how are they learning to take it seriously in the high school level? And this is the only thing these kids get offered. And again, it costs $750 for the entire year. I don't think that that's a cost that is that astronomical.
I don't think it's the cost. I think it's the competition.
Yeah.
It's like there's nobody.
But are we really doing our homework, looking to see because I definitely did. And there was at least 6 teams that would have middle school interest and.
In the league, like in a group.
They're not currently in a league, but it's something that we could research. I would have liked to seen some research and something to back up the fact that we're getting rid of it after, we've only
Oh, we're
done
not
it for 2
kidding.
years.
Oh, yeah.
It's intramural though. If the way I look at it as a parent of a child with special needs is if you're not, and I'm not you
Yeah.
specific, I'm saying if we're not treating it as a sport, neither is any of those kids. Neither is the other kids. So they're looking at it as, they're not good enough. They're not good enough to have a sport offered to them. That pushes out that we're not inclusive and that those kids don't matter. That's how it feels from a parent point of view. My kid doesn't even play basketball, but I'm saying that's how those families feel. And that's really stinks. I get the reason is we don't have competitive teams around our area. I just don't think we're doing the background to really say we don't have those competitive teams, because I will tell you, there is plenty of interest out there to do it. It's just, you got to put the work in.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak to that too. And I think I would love to have it be in the athletics. That would probably, my understanding would come up in our collective bargaining so we can add it as a coaching stipend. Right now, it exists in my budget. I pay for the coaches just because it's not listed in the back of the contract. I think we could be better at getting more competitive teams, but I think just the semantics of it, it's currently under me because it's not listed in, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not listed in the coach's CBA, so we can't call it that. So that's just kind of like a semantic piece, and I think we can easily add it in our next conversation.
I do think it was listed in the CBA.
It is for the high
High
school.
school is.
It is for the high school. So I think we need to look at, and that's actually something I've brought up about looking at our, the middle school, we have to refresh our stipends. They're outdated. And so I think it's naturally going to be a conversation that comes up next year, next time we negotiate that.
Good.
Well, I was going to say, so contracts should never hold us or our employees back from
Yep.
excelling. So I think if this was something that the administration like actually wanted to propose and do, I think we could ask WA for a sit down to quickly add, or not quickly, but
Yep.
add this position to the contract even before we go back to the table to fully
love to
negotiate
do
it. And I don't want to speak for WA, but I feel like it would be just, they've never said no to a sit down just to talk through ideas. So I wouldn't want to use the contract as a reason for like why we couldn't move forward with this. Just while I have the floor, the other thing is Hingham Middle School has an active unified sports program, which is a very quick bus ride. So I think at a minimum, I mean, I hear you saying like, what about the league? But also with these other teams that we're proposing here, if
You get to do that.
there's not like, that's not really like, an MAA league either, that like the cross country and the track
As
competition.
we're moving
right?
at it, yeah.
Yeah, so
It actually is. It's a South Shore Middle School League.
but who oversees that?
The South Shore League oversees it, and they let us join as a member.
But it's not MAA or anything,
It's the MSSADA.
right? So what I'm saying is, we can come up with excuses about why we're not going to do something, or we could be creative in our problem solving and say, we're going to make a Tri-Town South Shore League right here for unified athletics. And it's possible, and if we want to do it, we can do it.
And there's
because
people willing to help. I think that's another option, is there is people willing to help too
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, so I understand your rationale and your reason, and I don't want to like push back and sound like a jerk, but I'm just saying, I hear the rationale and the reason, and everything you're saying, I think a little creative problem solving can actually, we can address it through that, and one or two, or it would be a stipend, right? What do you, yeah, one stipend I think would be worth it for kids to feel included.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
And Dale, can I just add, I do want to clarify, we 100% see unified as a sport, right? So, I mean, if you see where it falls with tennis, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, right? So it is a sport. I think what we're saying is the competition, right? And so we hear you loud and clearly about finding a competition, but I do want to clarify, we see it as a sport. They are athletes. They are recognized as athletes. We just have to work a little bit harder on finding competition.
And I do think administration does that, but it sometimes gives the vision to people that don't understand this life that they aren't enough and they need something that is just for them. And that's not necessarily the truth. Any questions from the committee?
Can we propose two while we're doing it? Can we do a spring sport too? Yeah.
Let's
While we're here.
write this down.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
Jenny, for your proposal, I don't see the athletic and intramural coordinator position.
Yep.
Is that still on the board or on the table?
No, just being mindful of the financial place that we're in.
Okay.
I would definitely think we might need some site supervision if I can't be there. But it's something that I would probably absorb
Okay,
personally.
thank you.
Yes.
And this is great. This is appreciated.
We talked about possibly just like some time cards to relieve Jenny from being on site all the time for every game. So like if we might have to offer a couple of site management people to be there, or because Jenny's somewhere else in the building. So we kind of eliminated the coordinator, but we'll have a little bit of funds in case we need to see other, kind of the security. That building is now similar to the high school. There's a lot happening in that building after hours. So we just have to be mindful of that as well.
Can we just clarify, that's on the intramural side? The other
Yes.
side would be covered by athletics. The competitive side would be covered by athletics.
There was a site
You're right.
management
Yeah.
person there, yeah.
Or one of us.
Yeah,
The intramural piece was the oversight question.
yeah, I think, yes. I think the intramurals are still overseen by your office too, across the district. So that's, could you technically have would you have two administrators there though, if you had intramurals and athletics happening at the same time?
If you,
Or would it fall
one
under?
would be inside, one would be outside.
Okay,
You'd have to have two people.
okay, okay.
And I recognize that intramurals are run by my office, but if there's something going on at the middle school and something going on at the high school, we'd still need somebody at the middle school to oversee whatever the intramural was or the competitive game was that was going on.
Yeah, I just, no, I understand. I think the coordinator, I heard you saying that the budget is intramural, in Jenny's. Well, I just wanted to be clear in the conversation that it's still, we're still under the umbrella of talking about the athletics department. You know, we're not offloading intramurals and just making the middle school handle it. That's my concern. Yeah.
Correct.
Go ahead.
I just had a quick question. So I just don't remember this from last time, the $4,500 for the new cross-country and track uniforms. I don't remember that from last time. Is it just track that needs uniforms
We've been purchasing uniforms each year
this year?
and we haven't done it for that.
Track.
Okay.
for the
So that's the last one
Outdoor
left.
track hasn't got, cross-country got it, but outdoor track is not. But the proposal would be to buy enough so that everybody would have the same ones for the fall. So you'd have like 100 of them now instead of like just having 25 and 25. They'd all be the same and so if we had 100 kids come out for cross-country, you'd have enough uniforms.
Okay, thank you.
Would they be laundered?
Oh, yeah.
So would there be a cost to the laundry?
We have,
No, we have.
we have that on
one
oh, we have it on
person,
site.
And that works for us.
Okay. Under the high school?
Over at the high school.
Oh, okay.
Under athletics.
Under athletics. Yeah, that's what I
Just
just,
on the stipend clarification, so we see it as the high school, so Jenny, we could definitely work through that piece. The union's been great in the past where we have the stipend positions within the contract. As long as we're connecting like stipend work to like stipend work, the rates are set in the contract and we always post the position. So as long as we're posting it using similar rates when it comes time to open the contract, the union's been great of just, bringing those into the contract, memorializing them. So we should be
great.
fine on the middle school piece of that. So I'm glad you brought it up.
thank you, Brian. What's next? Did you want to go? You're good? Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, let me stop sharing here and get up the other documents.
Thank you.
Bye, Jenny.
Before does anybody have any questions before Jenny leaves? Anybody on Zoom? Oh. If they could raise their hand. Raise your hand on Zoom if you have any questions for Jenny so she can go home to her family. Okay, no, we're good? Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
To this. Apologies while I bring this again. Screen. Okay, all yours, Rob.
All right, so last time we were here, we presented a budget and then we're asked to break it down by sport. So the actual for 24-25 and then the projection for 25-26, proposed budget. So I don't know where you want me to start at when we left off with the increase in next year's budget. the 50, the number we talked about, was 56,136. The proposed budget for next year would be a total of you'd have just over 1.1 million. And you'd have the 669 in the staff budget, the 171, 272 in the operating expenses. And then what we would be bringing in, the 279, would leave us with a little bit of a profit, well, I don't call it profit, but a little bit of a balance of 16,921. That's after doing the full exercise of the proposals of each sport, what we would bring in, what we would spend, what the increases were, and, you know, we use the actuals from this year to propose next year's estimates. So,
Can I make a suggestion?
yep,
When you're doing like the proposed, like this second part here, you put the total amount on the top and then as you take revenue out, so the net adds up.
Yep.
Because if you look at if you look at your fiscal year 26 operating staff budget and then your fiscal year, can you pull the spreadsheet up? Do you have the spreadsheet pulled up?
Can we even just talk through, I know what you're gonna say.
Yes,
Can we just talk
yes,
through these numbers?
Yes, go ahead.
You looking for the budget book piece or?
Well, no, his budget, his spreadsheet. Like
This
the
one.
actual.
Oh,
Excel
I'm sorry,
spreadsheet,
actuals.
Not like
This one from this
not the
year?
PDF,
The for real.
the for real, the working document,
Oh.
the working document, not like the,
Gotcha.
Scan page.
I could bring that up.
from the total revenue piece, can you just come in?
just like the working document, because if you highlight over those two numbers,
Sharing.
those are the only two that don't have a formula attached to them. So it was really difficult to figure out where those numbers were coming from.
Which, the $1 million?
The fiscal year operating staff budget and the fiscal year operating
And
expense.
it came out of the budget book for 24, 25, and 25.
So you pulled that from that. Okay,
The budget book itself.
okay. Did you want to,
What? I just don't want to get ahead of Brian.
sorry.
No, keep doing it. I think it's this.
Yes, it's that one.
This way on Rob? Yeah, this is it. This is basically the Google Doc.
Yes.
Yep.
You're talking-
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that,
No, sorry, the Excel. the
Sorry,
sheet, the
I know
sheet.
Excel, I'm sorry,
The
the
sheet.
sheet.
I'm a Microsoft guy.
If you go down, like, that's the only one that didn't have a formula, so it was kind of hard to figure out where those numbers were being pulled from throughout the document.
Yeah, they're coming from the budget book for
Okay, okay.
24, 25,
Okay.
25, 26.
If it was like a running tally, you know what I'm saying, that would be like easier to have figured that out, you know what I'm saying? If the revenue piece was down the bottom and like, that's just how my brain works. I don't know if anybody else works. It just,
I'm sure we can-
I've also been looking at
It flows
spreadsheets
better.
all day, so,
I'm sure I can somehow flip it.
Close these.
no.
I don't want to do it right now, but.
No, I'm just saying it would just be easier to figure out those numbers and make sure everything matches up throughout the
Yep.
spreadsheet if it was like going down.
I want to be in 25, 26.
So can we,
Okay, this is the right, so this number here. I was looking at the 24, 25, 25, 26 in your budget book. This number is the total staffing request. This number is the total operating budget expense request.
Got it.
It changed.
Alyssa's showing it.
So on the summary sheet, because they all have that.
If you guys remember at the athletic subcommittee, we talked about this number a lot, which was the original request for next year. In those conversations around raising fees or raising the operating expense budget request. What was determined in that subcommittee meeting was that we were going to ask for 56,000 more,
Okay.
which is this new total, which does tie
That-
to the budget book.
Gotcha.
So the summary sheet, the budget book tie to now, the operating staffing request and the operating expense budget request, totaling 840,000. And then as Rob outlined, in addition to the operating budget, we fund with the revolving fund, and Rob anticipates revenues of 229,000 in user fees, 50,000 in gate fees, which is your total estimated revenue
Right.
here.
Can we just go, I'm sorry to make you switch back and forth, Brian. Can we just go back to the page that looks like this?
Yep, and I apologize if I wasn't sharing
And
that.
I'm talking about the summary sheet, just so we can, I just want to I want to map the math, if that's okay.
Yes.
So if we go back again,
Verb.
so for those watching,
Move the date, that one then? Or the proposed?
Oh, for proposed.
Proposed.
I'm sorry, Rob, proposed.
That's that's that one.
no, the, like it's on your screen there.
Yes.
Hey, folks, I'm sharing this document, so I
It's
want
that
to make sure. So you want this one here, correct?
Nope,
Page, I think it's page
Page.
5, yeah. Oh, yep.
too far.
This page.
And, oh, I'm sorry, proposed, so I think it's, keep going.
Yeah. That one with the red writing on the top.
Yep, this one here.
Okay, so estimated revenue, that one's easy, because we're just adding the no, this is all projected, the projected user fees plus projected gate revenue.
Yep.
Okay,
Can I ask a question about that before?
well, you're the chair.
Does that include the 5% increase?
The fee.
The fee? No, that does not. That's without the increase. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
go
this
ahead.
is
Projected user fees plus what?
User fees plus gate.
Plus gates.
On
Okay,
the next page. There you go.
Yeah, you're on this.
yes, yeah. All right, and then so estimated total expenses is stipends all the way through maintenance and custodial added up.
From whatever that was, column, well, you can't see the column, but yes.
And just to, like, my quick overview that I gave it this afternoon, so it looks like the big increase from this and previous years to next year is almost all the way due to transportation costs, like, basically, ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the increase in salaries of the stipend.
Well, the contractual COLAs, yeah. Okay,
But the bigger increase is transportation.
yep. And that tracks, that's like all we've been talking about, so that's, okay. So then, the next line, overhead. So this looks like the,
The AD, the admin assistant and the athletic trainer's salaries all added up.
all right, so and this is what I asked about in last week's meeting. So this is the top 3 lines,
40 of it, yep.
the top 3 lines of the budget book.
Yep.
So I feel like we're okay with that math. All right. So then the net estimated cost, so if we add up the 849 plus 243 minus the 279 for the revenue, are we supposed to get 823?
No, that number would be
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
the 1,102,940.
The full budget ask.
That's the full
Full
budget.
budget ask.
No, but I think you're,
The 823 is only in that's what's in the operating budget. That's right, Brian?
So,
The rest of it-
I think what Rebecca's saying is, and she's correct, is that this net number, net estimated cost is you're taking total expenses plus the overhead and then subtracting out the estimated revenue before you're getting into your operating budget.
Correct.
That's just not net number. So yes, your calculation is correct.
I think you got there one way and we got there the other way. So
And
we took the 279,550 already out of it, out of the 1.1, the 1,022,948 to get to that 823,385 and then cover it with the money that's in the operating budget. If that makes sense.
so, well, I hear your line of thinking. It's hard for us because we don't see the 1.1.
don't see
It's
the
like,
one-
it's
we
like
don't
the
see the
math
one-
class, like you have to show
Should
your.
I have to show my? So when we were here prior,
Yeah.
we gave a different spreadsheet, right? That had, it had it all broken out. It had 23, 24, 24, 25.
That's right.
25, 26, right? And that was when we should, like, I did the formula for you, showed the work, and then went back and broke it down by sport. And I understand we can add a line if you'd like to get to that number and then subtract it to get
Yeah,
to that number there would be, if that's what you would like us to do.
Well, no, we can do it right now.
but I think it needs to be there.
It does need to be there.
It needs to be there because we've been looking at this for weeks. So other people, town council, are going to be looking at it and they're going to be like,
That
where
don't
the
make,
heck is that number from?
that doesn't make sense, yeah.
So people need to be able to know.
And I like that it's broken up by sport. I just don't think the below information has all the information that
Yeah, it's just
No.
a different
way of
do the math.
seeing it, yeah.
Well, yes,
So
I'm trying to figure it out line by line.
Yeah, yeah.
Put the number somewhere? Is there a spot?
Maybe it
to put
starts at
that,
the top
Brian,
and
in
then you-
another cell?
I can add the two.
So I just want to understand that, so all the costs up here
Yeah, that's-
are expenses.
So it shows.
Everything up here, Rob, is expenses attributable to a team directly. Right?
Sorry, Brian.
Everything up here is expenses that are attributed to the team directly, right? So that's why you have this total number, which is
Can you go right just to make sure that number is the number that we're talking about? I know it is, but I just want to,
46.
yeah, that number there.
So what Rob is demonstrating here is that the 849 is the sum of all the expenditures that are directly attributable to teams. In addition to that, what he's calling overhead is the salary for the administration, the athletics department, that we're not attributable to a particular team, so it's the overhead. The sum of those two is what he's saying athletics is going to cost to run.
The ask.
1.1 million.
The ask, yeah.
Oh,
You could probably create a cell somewhere to show that,
Yeah, you could do it right underneath. You
to add those two together.
Oh, okay.
You want me to do it or do you want to?
I'm gonna do it right here.
Yeah,
okay, so without revenue, the cost to operate is
Yes.
1.1. Yeah.
Now you take out the revenue.
yeah, you should take, the revenue should be down the
Below.
bottom, because you, actually, you're estimating that too, so it really should be like down the bottom. If we get this, then it looks like this.
Cost. Right, and then, so that's the total cost, and then you have,
So Brian, they want us to move that estimated revenue down below that.
Yep.
Which will bring it to the estimated cost.
Right.
Can you just drag it?
and so now we're gonna take.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please,
Put the estimated revenue above the estimated cost,
It should be on line
so
70.
that the estimated cost is in a negative in parentheses, like.
Yeah.
I look at the estimated cost in parentheses and I'm automatically thinking it's a negative.
Negative.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, because that's my experience looking at financial reports,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so you want line 7?
so,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
You put it there and then it's, you should end up with a positive number for the estimated cost when it adds up. For the new.
Yeah.
You gotta take the yes.
So you really want to,
You want to take that whole 76, 77, 78 and put them up there too.
you can do it, you could just do, you could put right in the C cell equals.
Is it the worst to fix the spreadsheet?
it's like,
Come on, Brian.
honestly, I do it another way, but it's not mine to do right now.
69 minus-
Yeah,
Right, it's not, mine.
I
So,
just wonder if the font should be times. Yeah. Change of color.
all right, so total estimated costs.
It's gonna black out.
Estimated revenue I mean, you want it to be negative, but fine. So net estimated cost. And then you're gonna do equals this, and then this is what we have. So there's the, we'll just do.
Look at that.
So
No,
we anticipate a net surplus at the end of the year of 16,000, almost $17,000.
Okay.
And I'm gonna take complete ownership of this and start doing things that I would do.
Can I ask, can I keep asking questions?
Yes.
Okay, so this is great. My next question is the line FY '26 operating staff budget. So what's the deal with this? So why, what role does that line play on this summary?
I'm not sure I understand.
So if we just figured out it costs roughly 1.1 to operate, and then total expenses are 850, and then we have overhead.
669,034.
Yeah, so why is that
The
there?
budget, that's what's budgeted for the salaries of the stipends, the athletic trainer, the athletic director, and the admin assistant that on the budget side of the operating budget,
But is
not in the revolving.
overhead?
Isn't that an overhead too?
I don't think it is, but I think the stipends are included in overall total expenses.
Yeah,
And then the other positions are included in the overhead.
it's like taking the people out of the transportation and the referees and all that.
So I guess what I'm asking
Expenses.
is the operating staff budget that reflects 669?
That's what's in the operating budget to pay the salary.
Yeah. I'm just asking, is it on this sheet because, how do I explain
Because
it?
that's where it's funded. Like, you have to fund.
Oh, no, I understand funding.
Top on the total expenses is what.
Is it in, so you know the exercise we just did with this math?
Yeah.
These three lines right here, are these impacting totals that we just came to on the board? Or are they here just to show us like the budget
The
asks?
breakdown.
Just to show you the breakdown.
Okay, so there's no more, we're not mapping.
No, you're not mapping.
Okay,
So
Those are just almost no.
Decorations.
like,
So
they
they,
could go over into a key or something,
yeah, they don't impact the
that number.
calculations.
They're not in this.
Because what you're doing is like people are trying to add or subtract and then there's
Yes.
just random numbers in that row that are.
So that would be like a little box on its own, like its own little chart, right?
Yeah, just away from the math.
Pulled out of the map,
Away from
yeah.
the math.
Yeah, because we're looking at the spreadsheet, looking where that information is being pulled from. I think that was the confusion, right? Like, we couldn't find what that matched with
How they all,
in that spreadsheet.
You're either adding these numbers, subtracting these numbers to get to that. And these numbers are just kind of there and they're not part of the
so
math.
this spread, this here, I think derived from,
I think you did everything in the above, like you
yes,
did it
it's
all.
all included.
So like those three numbers are just confusing people.
All right. let me get
You know what I mean? Yeah, I think you're clarifying what they are and the numbers, but it's confusing in the total math.
Okay.
So I guess this,
I've been taking pictures of it.
I just want to make sure, here's what I want to make sure. of. Well, two things. And I know it seems like we're being nitpicky, but I think I don't think I know, when we have to communicate this across the street into the families and stuff, we just need to be able to explain it and use the information we're getting to back us up. So that's what this is right now. Just another point of confusion about these three lines, so I also get the challenge of this budget ask because we separate out some things for middle school and we don't separate out some things for middle school. And so there is some cross-pollination, if you will.
And you have an operating budget and a revolving budget.
Oh, yeah. So I just want to acknowledge, like, I get that this can get, there are gray areas and everything.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just finished doing my little forensic audit
Yep.
at the table.
Yep.
So this operating staff budget request is the sum of all of the high school coaches stipends,
Okay.
right? 395, 742, plus the overhead
Those two.
administration,
Right.
plus the middle school, 20,044.
right, yeah,
If you
it's from-
sum those
okay.
amounts, you get to the total operating ask staff of 669,034.
Okay.
Gus, can you check my math?
That makes, can you throw a little formula in? I'm just kidding.
But
That's why I talked about the cross pollination,
Okay.
making it hard.
And then, yeah, so I just wanted to just clarify this ask is for all staffing, which is, it is demonstrated in detail under this column,
Plus middle school.
plus middle school, plus the administrative oversight.
So it was confusing because it's just confusing because it's on the page labeled high school. So
Right.
for a little while, I was wondering why that number was like $20,000 over.
Right. We couldn't add it up.
Yeah, but now this makes sense.
Makes sense.
Right there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you for that clarification.
My brain hurts.
Yep.
Next, we're gonna do V lookups, if anyone wants to join us.
We pivot the table.
Pivot tables.
Do
you have any
new math?
So if we're projecting a $16,000 surplus, do we, and this is based on not raising athletics fees, do we need to have that discussion?
But that's based on getting the $56,000 that we were short when we were here last month. So if you remove the 56,000 from the 171, which hopefully we're not, but the ask is for the 56,000 to get to that 171, then we do not need to raise user fees, correct?
So can we answer that now?
So I'll answer it a different way. We've completely depleted our revolving fund, where we've had some extra money and things to supplement. But to me, on $1 million budget with such variables of transportation and other things that might come through the season, to completely balance it to zero, we're saying that every single, and certainly you can say this, Rob, that every single number that we're estimating next year is going to be spot on. Because we know that if we are short, it either comes from somewhere else in our operating budget or from free cash if there is any, or we have to go back to the town for more funding.
Sorry, Brian, can I clarify my statement?
Sure.
I thought we were talking about like increasing the user fee like $25 or $50. I do agree with the 5% if that's what we're talking about. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I should have clarified that. If we're talking 5%, I agree with what you're saying. I think when I was here a while back, it was 25 or 50 and we were going back. And, you know,
Should we bring this number to zero by cutting?
Well, it's, I mean, well, here's the thing, you're giving us a proposal with current user fees, right?
Yeah.
And so we're saying with current user fees, the math works.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm just saying, asking the obvious question.
Current
Justify.
user fees with the number of athletes we have currently, projecting that we have the same number of athletes next year,
Yeah,
which, I mean, you could also have 20 less, 25 less. I mean, it's an estimate. I think is what Brian's saying is if we're gonna be, living by these numbers every year and we're looking to increase fees, then the 5% would make sense, but.
And I think with all due respect, I'm much more conservative. So we don't see a revolving account building up that we're generating money every year. So I am a little concerned about budgeting that we're bringing in net money.
Yep.
I'm very concerned about that part of it.
Because this is the most revenues you anticipate, Rob, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's the most revenue we anticipate.
well,
So can I just jump in and ask a quick question? This kind of goes back to what I think we've been asking to look at the math of how many participants do we have this year? How many did we have last year? How many did we have the year before? If we continually have our teams
Updated.
full every year, then we can, in the last 5 years, have we not had a baseball team, not had a swim team, not had a football team, a hockey team? I think we just heard that we increased some of our sports because we had so many people wanting to play
Spots.
spot,
Is that what you mean?
like, we added a girls.
At the middle school. JV hockey.
JV
Yep,
hockey.
yep.
JV hockey.
We did.
So I think I'd like to look at like what the last 5 years, have we ever had to, do we go from 400 players down to 200? Then I could say, okay, well, maybe this estimate of, are we staying steady with the amount of kids playing sports?
In June and also in December, when I presented the participation breakdown numbers, we've ebbed and flowed from 1153 to as high as 1260 over that time frame. We did add a JV girls ice hockey program this year using 8th graders, but we also lost some girls basketball players this year. We increased wrestling, but our boys hockey numbers have been a little bit lower over the last couple of years. So
Lower as in they got cut from the team or
no,
lower?
lower just because when I first got here 5 years ago, we had 3 teams. We had a JV 2 team. Now we have 1 JV boys team. So we went from 75 kids to 60 kids or 58 kids, depending on the year. And I think in 2022, 23, we had 49 ice hockey players. This year we had 47 boys ice hockey players. So I think the numbers they go up and down depending on the grade. Our female sport numbers are higher right now than they have been. But you're also projecting that all those 8th graders that played girls ice hockey come to the high school. The JV players come to the high school and stay at the high school and play. We haven't had a JV softball team. We did last year for the first time, and we are projecting to have one this year, but our girl cross numbers are a little bit lower. So I think like the numbers are within a certain frame, but to say that we're gonna have that number over and over again every year, I mean, that we hope. We are growing in some areas. Girls rugby numbers are down this year. We might be looking to co-op because might not have enough girls rugby players. So, but we do have, again, we have a softball program. So some of the girls have migrated over to softball. So it's just,
Yes.
what did they choose to play?
I get that. I'm just looking at what, I don't know.
So-
And I get being conservative and I get that, but I just, if we can avoid raising it because.
Yeah, and I know we have fees on the agenda too,
Mhm.
but I do want to, I have more thoughts, but I just want to, maybe, should we finish this part and then
we'll have that discussion.
Mhm.
Can I ask one more question about the user fees? So how did you figure out the proposed user fee
Question.
for 26? Is it based on participants of last year? Because there is some increases there. So are we opening that up to more or?
So it's based on, let me just pull that thread. I went back to the participation spreadsheet. Let me just pull that spreadsheet up. So the 25, 26 projections are an increase in certain sports
Yeah.
that we know that we have kids coming into. For one of them is football. We have 30 kids right now and interested in football as 8th graders
Okay.
that have already reached out about summer dungeon programs and off-season lifting and things like that. So yeah, I projected an increase there. Trying to toggle back and forth to give you another example, but
Can I ask a question? How do you figure out if somebody's interested? Like, so do you go see the 8th graders and like,
our coach has, yep.
yeah, they do, so they
Football coach has already,
put all the teams or is it just like?
for the football coach has already made contact with the football players. this time of year when kids are looking at other schools and
Yeah.
stuff, it's good to get the high school down to have conversations.
Okay.
We know what we have in the youth programs. We know what we have at youth hockey and youth basketball, and the number of kids who are, projected to come if they all come.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
But just using
Yeah, go ahead.
like field hockey, for instance, this current year. Just trying to get the example I just had in my head, sorry. So field hockey, for instance, this current year, we had a huge junior class. So there'll be seniors next year. So there'll be more opportunity for younger kids at the JV level to come out and play field hockey. So that's why there's a little slight increase there. But with that said, that giant junior class are now going to be seniors. So we have to do something to grow field hockey in order to keep that number higher. Or we might be back to just one team again in 2 years. Because because graduation, you move on.
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification too. Any other questions from anybody?
I'm sorry. I just think the historical that you're flipping through right now is something that would make it easier for us if we saw like the way you're tracking it and saying 2 years ago it was this, and that we don't see that till you come and say, this is what it is right now. And we're projecting, but we can't see the history of it.
So I can share, it's been in the presentations that we,
Yeah, but I'm
maybe
just
before you got on the committee, but it's been in those presentations that we did. I can definitely reshare.
Yeah, like the repetition of it is
Yep.
what's helpful.
I understand.
I do like the way the spreadsheet is set up, that you can go back and forth to the 24, 25, 25, 26, because that was easier to navigate than the PDF.
Yeah, I think we agreed moving forward that we would be using a
Yeah, thank
spreadsheet, so it should be easier to
Thank you.
share year to year.
Dana?
Just clarify, so just to clarify, the proposed budget user fees is solely based on your projection of the participants in the sport and not on increasing fees,
That's great.
as if we just keep the fees where they are.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Did you want to go on to it? I won't, yeah.
I ask one question? So Rob, when we were talking about collecting fees, I know you and Principal Monahan have worked pretty hard this year to try to, really engage some of the families that haven't paid for previous years, right?
Yep.
So when we look at collected fees this year, and is it safe to say those might be higher than typical years because we're collecting like past years? And once we collect those past years, that collection should level off, or?
We're trying to track them by
Mhm.
sport by year.
Mhm.
And I have to give a shout out to Terry Fitzgerald, because she's really been helping us a lot in the main office by doing that and tracking. So if someone pays a past due fee, we're trying for it not to go on this year's
Okay.
account. But if you
Yeah.
made multiple payments and it was tracked, but what you see there is what's been
Like this
collected
year's,
to this
like
year.
this year's athletes,
Correct.
not that what they owed from 2 years ago, technically.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, at this time, I'll open it up to the public so they can ask questions about the athletics. I will open it up again after we talk about the user fees as well. Go
I
ahead.
just have a question. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're giving him the athletics, the additional $56,000 that they were looking for to make it even.
Well, we haven't voted.
Yeah, we haven't.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that's what it's,
It's in this proposal.
okay, thank you.
Who's next? Go ahead, Gus. Where's the?
Do you want to just, you can sit next to me if you
Yeah, you
want.
want to come over here?
Well, the mic's way up here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a general comment. I know it's difficult to remember all the time, but when presenters are speaking this way, you really got to turn the volume up because you can't hear back here at all. It's difficult to follow the meeting. And it's difficult to get anybody's attention to try to signal that we need to ask the speaker to raise their voice. So just please remind presenters that They need to increase their volume. I'm going to apologize at the onset. I don't know what this is. This is yet another presentation that I view as incomplete, not comprehensive, not detailed, not accurate. And if anybody sitting at this table thinks that it is, we're in a different room. This is also the third or fourth attempt to try to get to this information just this year. And sitting back there listening to what we just reviewed, depending upon whether it's the third or the fourth, I don't recall, this is 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. Brian, I don't know if you can put up the summary slide.
Sure.
This one, the one that's, I think it says high school, handwritten high school FY '26 proposed.
That's the proposed.
This one, right?
Yeah, this,
Which we've,
so it's that section of the spreadsheet.
Yep.
Right, okay. Before you started walking through the presentation, when I was just looking through at these numbers, you couldn't make heads or tails about what the numbers were. And you have to try different mathematical iterations to try to figure out what number represented what and how each of the totals for expenses and revenue subtracted from expenses led to the numbers on this particular slide. All right. So I'm always open to correction. I'm always open to education. You all know that. The way that I look at it is, and commentary that says this is complicated is wrong. It is not complicated. You're talking about an organization's revenue numbers and compared to their expense numbers. Two worlds exist in Weymouth Public Schools athletics, Weymouth High School and the middle school. They're not complicated numbers. So as I'm taking a look at what the numbers are here, I'm looking at estimated revenue for fiscal year 26, $229,550 from user fees, $50,000 from gate fees, a total of $279,550. That, if I heard correctly, that does not include a 5% increase to user fees.
Right.
So the 229,550 is a forecast for fiscal, and I get it. It's emblazoned in, big red stamp across the top, estimate. We understand. So the total estimated revenue for next year from a combination of user fees and gate revenue is $279,550. Fiscal year 26 is not going to include any carryover from the Chesno donation for gate fees. Is that all going to be expended in fiscal year 25?
understanding.
Okay, so in fiscal year 26, we're back to the pre-Chesno donation model, which was students and parents and families and everybody paying $5 entry fees.
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. All right, on the expense side then, as I'm trying to look at these numbers, estimated total expenses, $849,686. I'm going to label that as sports expenses, but that also include the coaches' stipends. Is that correct?
669,034.70.
The estimated total expenses of $849,686.55 is the total of sports expenses that also include the coaches' stipends at the high school.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That means the total expense line at the high school is $1,102,935, right? Okay. There's a couple of extraneous numbers on the spreadsheet. Maybe I missed it when the presentation was being made, but what does the $171,272 represent? I don't know what the FY 26 operating budget expenses are. What is 171,272?
That's Rob's operating.
That's my operating expenses for 26. So that's in the operating budget.
So if you go to the budget book
It's the ask in the budget book.
for operating.
Yeah, okay. So if I'm looking at these number calculations on the spreadsheet, it's saying that for fiscal year 26, the estimated balance is a positive 16,921.70. Is that correct? Okay,
Everything.
that without increasing the fees.
Without increasing.
Right, and again, Brian, I hear you. Assuming that every forecast number on that spreadsheet is going to be on,
Spot on.
it's going to be spot on and all of that kind of stuff. I get it.
No money.
Because we've never really, like, we're talking about an operating budget request here. And then, we are talking about fees later on in the presentation. But I don't love the focus on a net number that we don't yet.
Yeah, that's sort of like it is a stab in the dark.
It is.
There's too many variables on this, numbers of participation, waivers, family caps, transportation costs could go askew, other things. I get that. But the strict calculation based upon those numbers projected is that you're going to have a surplus of, it's nothing really.
Yeah.
But the strict calculation is that without a fee increase, you're looking at a $17,000 projected surplus, right?
Calculus is, yes.
Okay, so then on the revenue side, you got 220, I already said it, 221, 550 and 50,000 from gate revenue, total revenue 279. When you do the math, the balance is the 823,385. That's the need or the ask to fund Weymouth High School sports
High school.
for fiscal year 26.
Correct. And then,
To that, we're going to add, where's the middle school sports number?
That's in
31. But Brian, can
669,034.70.
Hold on, what is it?
It's so go back.
20,000 is in the high school budget.
Net,
Net.
the net.
It's in line 75. It's included in line 75, correct?
Correct.
okay, keep going with your thought, Gus.
Sorry.
So with that number,
So what is the middle school athletics cost projection for fiscal year 26?
31,000.
31,109.
31,109. Okay. So if we add that to the 823,385, we get whatever, we get 850 and change. Right? I didn't do that math. And
Let's do it here for everyone at home.
there you go.
But the
No,
31,109, I transpose a number.
So I left my phone back there, so I can't do the actual math.
it's not, it doesn't add.
The total number, it's the 823,385 plus 31,109.
yeah, but
So we determined that the 20,044 plus this is this. Now the exercise of what this makes up.
Yeah, Brian, I'm sorry. Let me just stop you.
Yep.
I'm just walking through the process. The high school ask is 823,385. What's the middle school ask for fiscal year 26?
31.
31.
31,109. So the total athletics ask for Weymouth Public Schools for high school and middle school is, what is it, Tracy, if you add it up?
4,494.
8 what?
854,494. Those two together, right?
Okay, so, thank you. I don't see that number anywhere.
Nope.
And that's all it is. High school needs, after you do the expense minus revenue number at the high school, expense minus revenue at the middle school, you add both numbers up, you come up with $854,494. Where is that?
So I believe, Rob, that this amount, 11,065, would that be?
In there, yep.
Well, her amount was 10. Right, wasn't her request 10?
That was for the intramural side of it.
So if you go to your budget book.
In the budget book inside, so the $20,000 is in the operating staff budget of 669,034. And the difference is in the operating budget expenses, 171,372.
I'm going to suggest that this is a very simple process, as I've outlined in my introductory commentary. And this is far too complicated the way it's being presented right now, when it should be just very straightforward to just simply come up with the numbers. It's just revenues compared to expenses, add them up to the high school, add them up to the middle school. I do agree that, thank you for going back to this spreadsheet, which was the layout that was used many years ago, that identifies them by sport. I'm trying to find it here, but you know the one that I'm talking about. My suggestion would be that you do a separate section either within the spreadsheet or a second spreadsheet that looks exactly the same for the middle school. Then you have two sheets that provide all of the detailed information by sport, by season. I would suggest that the column that includes athlete numbers be populated with the actual athlete numbers. Then the vast majority of the data is on two sheets of paper.
I think
Part of
Right.
that. It's
Middle
on the
school
bottom,
is
down in
there.
the middle
there is a
school.
tab there for
Yeah,
middle school.
On the bottom.
It's not.
Oh, but it's not by, it's not the, by
It's not
Well, it's not by sport. I'm saying replicate it. Replicate the spreadsheet that you're
It is
using
by
in high school.
sport, because that's,
By sport that we offer at the middle school.
yeah, that's,
Not
Just less
missing like
sports.
user fees because there are, there's a
Yeah,
couple of
there's no
tabs.
Yeah.
fee there. There's-
Be combined.
I don't want to berate the point, but this is,
I guess there's not much detail to add in there. No, but it's easy, it would be easier accounting wise.
It'd be
Figure out
apples
the
to
numbers
apples instead of saying,
and pull it together if it was on one sheet.
yes.
It's a very simple
But-
sheet. If you put it on one, then all your maths up. We're not spending 2 hours discussing it.
Searching.
You know, it's simple. It would make your life easier actually to put it on one sheet because it would be right in front of you to see it. And everybody else.
yeah, I would agree with all of that, Danielle. I'm glad to hear that going forward, this format's going to be the same. One of the biggest challenges, not just with the athletics presentation, but with other presentations across the district, whether it's school improvement plans or academic performance improvements or outcomes being compared. When presentations are made year to year, they never historically have followed the same format. It's impossible to make comparisons from one year to the next. So I would suggest to all of you, excuse me, committee members, that when you sit to develop the superintendent's goals and objectives, I'm going to suggest, and I'll do it now since it's relevant to this particular presentation, that you include in there a goal and an objective, that you standardize the format of presentations, whatever the topic is, so that we can continue from one year to the next and be able to actually easily do comparisons and identify trends in those, and also identify successes in a much easier way.
It's also easier to put into a presentation if it's on one sheet. You could use AI.
Right. So somebody asked it, I don't know who said it, but in terms of what's missing here is an easy to follow, easy to understand, comprehensive, all-inclusive document that identifies, somebody asked it, what were participation numbers this year by sport compared to last year, compared to 2 years ago, compared to 3 years ago? Are we doing better than 10 years ago? Where are we waivers wise? How many waivers were allowed and applied for what total dollar amount for fiscal year 25 compared to fiscal years 24, 23, 22? Same thing with scholarship payments. Family caps, where were those totals? How many families actually hit the family cap? How much money was provided or not collected as a result of the family cap? In terms of collections, what are the current amount of outstanding obligations? That means unpaid fees. And how does that compare to the same period last year or 2 years ago? What about gifts and donations? Were there any? Were there any booster donations, either in cash, like the Chesna donation that was being used for user fees, or anything else? In the past, many booster organizations would do in-kind purchases of things like soccer balls, hockey pucks, goal nets, all kinds of different things. Does the absence of any conversation about that mean that there's been none of that? It's all gone away? I guess that's a question.
Yes.
So there's been none of
Athletic
that?
Department purchases all of that.
All right, so then that gets me to the next item, which is the current relationship with the booster entities. It used to be a very good collaborative, cooperative, and effective partnership where if a particular team needed certain things, we didn't, and back in the day, we had even less money in the budget. When I first got involved a dozen years ago, this is what initially got me into these conversations was the athletics budget. It was an even worse situation back then than it is now. But back then, booster organizations, the relationship between the athletics office and boosters organizations was a much more collaborative one where they really did fundraising to help support the infrastructure and equipment needs of the sports. I'm saddened to see that is no longer the case. I'm sure there's plenty of reasons, but
I do believe athletic subcommittee is meeting with all the boosters in the next. Yep.
Right, I'm aware. That's good. That'll be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Right. So my point is, relationships take work. They don't appear in and of themselves. So if you want booster participation in each of the sports, there has to be an effort on, I'm going to say, the administration side to engage in that relationship and to foster that relationship. I don't think it's going to happen unilaterally from the other end. That's been my experience in the past when I ran booster groups. I'll be berating things if I continue my commentary. I hope I've made my point, but I don't see how any member of school committee can vote for any kind of a fee increase to athletics. I'm not going to repeat the philosophical position about all that and the unfairness that exists with other extracurriculars not paying money and those kinds of things. That I've said enough, but I don't see how this presentation, this current set of data in any way, shape or form can justify a school committee vote to increase athletic fees for fiscal year 26. That would be wrong. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Gus.
Anybody else that has questions about athletics before we move on? No, I'm seeing people on Zoom. Is anybody else on Zoom that would like questions, a time to ask questions? Please raise your hand
Or they can unmute themselves.
or unmute. Anybody?
I see no one, Chair.
Okay,
Back to mute.
I don't even know. We are moving on to the fiscal contracts and procurement.
Correct.
Well, can we just, I'm sorry, just to tie this up, so the next steps for this is that it's getting packaged into the budget proposal that we'll be voting on?
Yes. Yes, Brian?
So we would vote on the whole entire budget
On the,
proposed, not
pieces.
pieces of it.
Yeah, you vote the entire budget.
I was looking for the date. I don't have it.
The date for
The budget hearing is
Yeah.
13th.
13th is the hearing, 27th is the final vote.
Thank you.
So questions about individual sections of the budget will need to be asked at the next school committee meeting.
13th.
13th. The hearing's the 13th, right?
Yes, we've got that clear.
I mean, I think in the past, at the vote, you've asked for final questions too. Right?
Oh.
So at the next school committee meeting,
Yeah, I
we'll be
think-
talking about the budget.
I think
That's our hearing
That's the hearing, public hearing,
the
yes.
public hearing.
at our school committee meeting.
Yes.
Okay,
March 13th,
thank
that's for
you.
the public comments, questions.
Okay,
And the 27th is the vote.
gotcha.
Sorry.
That's okay. Moving on to contracts and procurement.
In your packet, I mentioned this last meeting, we have to, in order to potentially go for anything greater than 3-year contract, go in front of council. So we are sent over a request to the mayor's office to get on town council for, I believe it's March 17th. They'll refer it likely to budget management, but our hope is we can potentially do an up to 5-year contract for our ELA curriculum. We feel that this would have potentially 6-figure savings doing a 5-year versus a 3-year.
That was going to be my question. What are we looking at for savings?
Yeah, we'd have to go through the process, but we think it'll be 6 figures. I think it'll be 100,000 roughly savings.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from the committee about that? No? No? Oh, sorry. No, it's all right.
Brian, the curriculum contract for 5 years, is that something that you sort of, is that something that was offered up by the company? I can't imagine it would have been offered up by the company necessarily. You aggressively went after
This is us.
a better deal for that. I think that point is.
Yes, so I think it was mentioned last time, the superintendent mentioned it. There's no intention of changing curriculums here. We're trying to negotiate a best deal for Weymouth in staying with the same curriculum. And we feel that the 5-year contract gives us more position to negotiate to get savings versus the 1 to 3. So I'm glad you asked to clarify that.
and Alyssa we work together to try to figure out the best. Some of it's, paying up front, some of it's multi-year contracts. So all those we try to-
I just wanted to make sure you're taking credit for, aggressive work to try to get to a better deal as opposed to, magically fell from the sky, which you did.
No, they did not. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Part of our plan to,
Definitely doesn't happen. I pray about it every day.
a lot of stuff fall. No, but it is in an effort to, we feel it's going to be the same company that provides the curriculum, but we want to be able to negotiate the best we can. So 5-year gives us a little more leverage to do so.
Do we have a timeline on that, when it would be placed on the town council agenda?
March 17th is my understanding.
Okay.
And typically, as the council will do, they'll refer it to budget management. And so superintendent and myself will go to budget management, probably the subsequent meeting. And if we get approval, then we'll move forward with the procurement and the contract.
Hey, I'll try to join you for that meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, let me drink.
All right, on to fees. In your packet is all of our fees: athletic, transportation, childcare, CT, even high school, pre-K, school meals. So all of our fees will review on a cycle, make sure we're aligning revenues with expenses. Historically, we've had the ability through our operating budget to supplement the activities that these fees support. When we're cutting $1.9 million out of our operating budget, it's tough to justify to continue to supplement the activities. The biggest exception is athletics, as we just talked about. We do budget and operating, and we also collect revenue to fund the activity. What we're proposing is that, in terms of increasing costs through contracts or inflation, in an effort to balance our budget and not cut additional expenses, including staff, that we have to look at our fees across the district. And we're starting with a 5% potentially across the board. We've talked, the superintendent and Mel and I have talked that we anticipate that the increase over the next several years is going to be greater than that. We've reached out to a number of districts. I know a neighboring community has actually doubled their athletic fee. And so other districts were looking at transportations. A neighboring community is implementing for the first time transportation costs of people paying for the first time in a neighboring community for bus fees. So it is an avenue we can take to try to balance our operating budget, because again, the operating budget for years supplements the activities that our user fees pays for. So in order to spread the pain of a $1.9 million cut, we feel that a blanket increase to our fees of 5%, at least that's what we're proposing right now, and then we have to look at future years, is what the superintendent and I are proposing. And just to put it in context, a 5% increase on athletic fees would put it from a $200 user fee to a $210 user fee. You want to add anything to that, Mel?
Yeah, and I think what Brian was saying too about just trying to support the operating budget. And I think, we looked at and we talked a lot about the increasing of fees, and what we're seeing in other districts is kind of this whiplash of, like Brian had mentioned, doubling fees. And we're really trying to stay away from that. When we talk about increasing 5%, I wish I could say that should take care of us for the next few years. But I think just like Brian had mentioned of like the softening of the cliff for us, we want to make sure we're doing the same thing for our families. We want to make sure that we're getting to the point in 3 years saying, boom, we're doubling everything. So we're trying to really be proactive. We're trying to watch what's been happening, what's trending. And like we've said, we don't see something in the immediate future that's going to tell us we're going to be in great times with inflation, with costs. So I just want to make sure we're being responsible for our community and not hitting everyone with large fees all at one time. So we're trying to kind of ease this in as well.
Can I ask a question about the charging station? So that was free before, correct?
It was.
Yep.
And now we're initiating.
Might have been a dinosaur next door.
now we're initiating the fee for that?
We are, because the charging stations was part of a grant the town received. We purchased electric vehicles and we installed charging stations. So part of the grant was, for a time, while we were expending the grant, there had to be public access to the utility, which is the charging stations. We're looking at next fiscal year, July 1, beginning to charge a rate for use of those stations.
We didn't start doing it. I thought we were already doing it.
No, we voted it early in the year. We did a separate vote for it, but we're still working because the town and schools are jointly going to begin to charge July 1. We're working, we have two different platforms in town that provide. So we have one company that does here, Pingree, other town areas, and then Chapman Middle School is another platform. So we're actively looking at which vendor we go with, but we have time to implement the new rates for the new fiscal year. That was one of our topics with the town treasurer this morning. And the rate we use, we've looked at comparable areas in town and comparable areas that these vendors support. And it'll cover because it's literally the electricity from our building is charging using those stations. So it'll at least cover our utility in the building.
Will there be like a time it turns on for to be charged or
So right now,
monetary charge?
it operates from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we did that intentionally because, again, we're cognizant of the intention of the grant, but we're also cognizant that there's no cost right now but the cost is our utility. So we're just cognizant of that. So we did feel that if we offered, business hours of the, town facilities, 7 to 3 is a reasonable hours.
So staff would have to pay for that if they wanted to use that.
They would, however, there's ways within the platform to have a discounted rate for, it might be a code or a badge or something where our staff, if you think about it, Chapman, if it's someone from the public parking there and using it, it'd be one rate, but if it's our staff using it, it could be another rate.
Okay.
What are we talking about right now? Are we just talking about all the fees in general?
So
I think we're just talking about this fee.
Yeah.
These fees right now.
our proposal is, and don't vote these until, I believe it's
May.
late April. So we're proposing, and as Mel mentioned, we were toying with anywhere from 5 to 15%, but we're going with 5 as a proposal. We're factoring that into our budget shortfall as revenue to offset. And so our proposal right now is 5% across the board.
The middle school athletics beginning fiscal year 26 projected fee of 175. So we are projecting a
Where you
fee.
seeing that?
You seen that?
It's on
Right there
the,
on the sheet.
it's right there on the sheet, but there's
Under the
no,
family cap.
yeah,
Yep, so we're not proposing a fee.
we're not proposing.
Yep, so we We will, if voted.
That we talked about it.
So if voted as proposed.
Yeah.
There's nothing here.
Okay,
We've had this on as a placeholder. This is the third year because of the
Okay.
Yep.
60,000 per
Yep.
year.
okay.
Good question, though.
Rebecca, did you have a question?
So I hear you about offsetting operating shortfall and everything.
Mhm.
With regard to the athletics fees. So, okay. So here's where I'm coming from. What was demonstrated to us in the revised budget tonight is that the fees as they are projected to work. And I understand the cushion of $16,000 is not, you're still holding your breath.
It's not comfortable.
But I think two things can be true at once. Number one, economically, we're in a really, really difficult, horrible, tight place. We need to find a solution for that. That's number one. But number two, we can't forget about the barriers that we create for kids to participate in after-school activities and get their social emotional needs met and their to live in healthy healthy ways. So two things can be true at the same time. I think in this case, we see that. Currently, and Mel, like, and Brian and Melissa, like, tell me I'm wrong, but currently, if the high school and middle school and athletics department is showing us this budget that could work by a hair, it seems to me then that we would trust the projections, and then if there's an overage, either the middle school or the high school looks at their own discretionary money and fills in the hole, since they're the ones giving us the proposal and the budget numbers. I think we have to trust what's being shown to us instead of accounting for something going wrong all the time.
Mhm.
That's number one. Number two, just while I have the floor, Chair.
Yes.
I really feel uncomfortable talking about fee increases, especially with athletics, without a proposal accompanying the fee increases about creative ways of generating revenue. So approaching area businesses, banners, sponsoring teams, et cetera. I know we've talked about this in other meetings. I feel like it's one of those ideas where I've expressed that I'm pretty serious about it, but nothing's come to us. I know I've sent administration some examples of neighboring towns who just started a sponsorship program in the past year. And a PR firm actually put out a press release about it, which is how I found it. But I'm not sold that we need to increase athletic fees, but B, if we are going to have that discussion, if you really say, hey, committee, we really need to talk about this, I would want to talk about it in conjunction with a proposal to also get some money from the community. That, if that's successful, then we could tell our families, hey, the fees are offset this year. So we could take away fees instead of adding them as we get closer to the school year.
I also think Gus made a good point when he said, it would be helpful if we saw the numbers on who takes Dreamcatcher, who's doing, because I think that will show the need and from the community, not just to us. It will show that there is a need for those athletes, yeah. And I think that would be helpful moving forward too.
Can I comment?
Yes.
So excellent. The 2 points, excellent points. The second point on the sponsors, I know we've talked about the past, whether it's banners or I think that certainly is a bigger conversation. I know Rob has some thoughts and ideas on that. On the first piece, this might help clarify. So when Mel and I talk about when we talk about increasing the fees, so if you think about if we increase the athletics fees to 5%, you're looking at roughly $10,000 more in revenue. We would then, so Rob wouldn't, no offense, Rob, but Rob wouldn't get that $10,000 to spend. We would cut his operating budget $10,000, effectively improving the bottom line by $10,000 in the operating budget. So the idea is that if we increase fees 5%, each activity that is also supplemented to the operating budget, we can now go back and cut the operating budget by that amount. We think that number is going to be $120,000.
We added to the operating budget this year,
So
right?
this is a piece
for
of the
athletics.
pie that
Yeah.
is really
Added-
important.
Yes.
To know.
This changes a lot of things.
asked great questions.
Yeah, no, it's a great.
So,
Very good point.
so I'm just, no, wheels are spinning.
I know,
So,
we just went from chocolate pie to key lime.
Yeah, so so we have an athletic budget, but like the performing arts, and I love them, I'm an artist myself. Like we always talk about your gate fees and where the gate fees go. Where do the ticket fees, when people buy tickets to go to the shows, where do those go? Do they go to the drama department? Like where do they
Boosters,
go?
Perhaps, it
Yeah,
depends.
so-
on who's collecting.
You know what I mean?
Great question.
Because
At Chapman,
they're not paying any fee.
Mhm.
So we're
But they're
adding
charging.
5%, they're charging, they're making money. And it just, I know it goes back into it, but we're not able to put it back into,
yeah, I don't,
athletics isn't able to put it back in.
when you say theater tickets, I'm not sure what is it
Like,
When,
like,
it's a,
at Chapman?
Yeah, the high
it's like,
school theater
so
club.
tomorrow night, there's band is playing, it's $10 a ticket.
That goes in the student activity account?
it's a fundraiser. It depends on.
It's a
fundraiser.
Yeah, fundraiser.
It's a
Fundraiser, but-
fundraiser for the band trip.
Right, so that's a fundraiser, but I'm saying like the regular theater, when they do their tickets, like that's their gate fee.
Mhm.
And does it It
That's
doesn't
their
come,
theater company money, so then they pay for the rentals, they pay for the custodians, the maintenance, that kind of all comes out of there also. They're set to, it's a whole
but-
other world
but,
that's
but
different.
sports are paying that too. Like we're adding to them, but these other groups still don't have anything. So should they get 5%? So they should start with 5% maybe. I'm just thinking the equity of it.
We don't have a
the
budget
extracurricular.
for the theater.
But I'm just saying all the other groups. I'm saying all the other groups don't pay except for photography. I don't know why that sticks in all of our bonnets, but they're not paying anything. So if they're getting everyone, athletics and everyone else is getting a 5% increase, shouldn't they have something?
I think
The other groups, I'm thinking like robotics and
You're
all
thinking
those other,
extracurriculars.
all the extracurriculars, shouldn't they be, because we're paying for the stipends for those teachers or whoever to staff to pay.
Karen's budget covers costs for the,
It's just,
It's different where it's transportation, referees, competition, MIA, like
And
that
most of
starts
them-
to really look
And
very
most of those
different.
extracurriculars have parent groups that leave fundraising efforts.
Yes,
So like.
because if they are using a
Yeah,
bus,
like
they
so robotics
fundraise for the bus.
leads their own
understand what you're asking.
fundraising.
I get
You see
what-
what
I
I'm
totally
saying,
get
right?
what you're saying.
Yeah. I just-
like if they're getting hit, I'm just saying athletes are getting kind of hit again,
Mhm.
right? Which we don't want them to have to pay to play anyway.
Yep.
And I'm in that group. So I'm torn. But I just think that there should be something, that these other groups are doing these things and excelling at these things and getting press for these things, and they don't have to pay.
I think they're self-funded. That's the thing.
They-
They fund,
Well, we pay stipends.
We pay
we
stipends.
But we're paying stipends for them.
But they also fundraise based on what events they're doing. So if robotics is going to do an event, they're going to fundraise specific to that event.
Yeah, I think like the photography one is, when, as Gus brought that up, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because in addition to the teacher in the classroom space, it's
Equipment.
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it is a little bit like apples to bananas, and a little bit of the sense of like a club might only meet like once or twice a week or once a
4
week.
times
or-
altogether.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying theater, are they renting the auditorium for every night of all these rehearsals and all, do they have to rent it out
They
for
would.
for every after-school rehearsal that they
I
do?
have to look at Karen.
Theater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not our theater program.
Yeah.
I think the district, what the district covers is a cost per student for like the staff and, other supplies and materials. But I think the big cost for athletics for an athlete is, the transportation, the referees, whatever site. So
Equipment, the equipment.
so I hear that other clubs and activities don't get charged, but I don't think their costs are nearly what the athletic cost is. But Marilyn,
I get that
hear
too.
your point.
No, I get that too, but it's just like, it's athletics again.
I think, the question about the theater, and I think sometimes groups might collect at the door as a suggested donation. I think sometimes the tickets go towards a fundraiser, where for the athletes, the user fee goes directly to the cost, directly attributable to the students.
I mean, because the athletes the parents and boosters are doing fundraisers and all that. They're working a lot harder, I think, for their kids to play. And now they're gonna have to pay more for them to play.
Brian, you said you threw out a $10,000 number. Was that like, tell me about the $10,000.
5% of Rob's projected fee collection.
So with the 5% increase, we'd be looking to make
It
extra
could be like
10,000,
another 10,000.
which could offset,
We would reduce,
we'd move $10,000 from the proposal.
we cut 10,000 from his
10,000.
operating proposal.
So why can't we have a conversation about selling $10,000 in sponsorship banners that go not to athletics, but to
Certainly.
the district?
Yeah.
I think two grand a pop
Yeah,
for
It's not a big
a
number
couple
at all.
of season is,
Mhm.
that's 5 banners.
Yeah.
We could probably make more than that.
Mhm.
I really think it's time to have a serious discussion about that.
Sooner
Yeah, I
than.
don't know
If we can do that maybe at the subcommittee where it's like boosters and.
I don't, if in your next AD's meeting, I'm sure other districts, I'm sure ADs can pull whatever they use for a process. I know Steve he has a process for Woody Field, so maybe Rob maybe something we can talk about at the athletics subcommittee. What do you?
And I know that you talk about, we have to kind of go through the town to a little bit about the sponsorships. I think you mentioned that one time, like if we were going to have,
Not for our fields.
not for our fields.
No.
Because I automatically think of like the 4th of July thing that they have no problem reaching out to us saying, by the side of a bus, you know what I mean? So there should be some
4th of July
And
and
the
the
Christmas-
Christmas.
and the
Christmas, everything,
Focusing on our gymnasiums and then our fields at the high school for banners. And I think the relationship between athletics, finance and maintenance, we'd all work together to, we just need some maybe procedures that another athletics department uses. We would work on getting the banners, maintenance would put them up, take them down. So I think that the opportunity is there, Rebecca, 10,000. I know cities, I know many local businesses in the community certainly jump on the idea.
Really,
Yeah.
we live in one of the most generous towns, I think, in Massachusetts, I really have to say. And I think our local businesses, I think they would love the opportunity to support.
I get
Or
hit by
athletes.
Rotary every other week.
But I think for athletic subcommittee, we could come back with something, have that conversation.
I would love to have that conversation before we're asked to.
For the month.
vote on
We have to raise
the fees, yeah.
Or we'll have boosters the next meeting, so it's actually a perfect time to talk about it.
When are you meeting?
Budget.
24th.
Before.
24th.
After St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Just to
Did you
put
want?
that in.
Because you did the math. 17 plus 7 is more math.
Can I just switch notes for the Weymouth High School childcare and also like maybe loop in the Adams Early Childhood Center as well? So, this is me. This is what I do for my life. Although it doesn't seem like there's a lot of separation lately. The childcare fees, can I ask you what the length of the day is? Is it 7
I'm sorry, at the high school?
at the high school?
Childcare, it's 8.
It's 8:15 to 2:15.
Thank you.
Professionals are here.
And what about John, no longer Adams?
Yeah, Adams pre-K varies. They're 750, 850, no, 750.
I think it's 7:50.
This midday program, and then they get out at like 2:15, I believe. I don't have the exact, I'm sorry, Tracy, I don't have the exact times.
Here,
Yes.
a full day is 8:15 to 2:15. The morning program is 8:15 to 10:45. And the afternoon program is 11:45 to 2:15.
Thank you.
That's really.
Sorry, so that's for,
That's for here, Adams,
WECC.
Okay,
And childcare, I think, is 8 hours.
the high school child, is that what we're talking about, the high school childcare?
okay. So I just
Oh
want
my God.
everybody to understand these rates, they're really affordable, like really affordable. I know you guys don't think that.
For preschool,
Mhm.
for 6 hours? No. I was gonna raise my hand.
I'm telling you. I'm one of the cheapest ones on the South Shore and I'm $1,000 difference. Now, my day is up to 9 hours.
Yeah. So
But-
think about that from a parent's
but
perspective.
I understand, but I'm just saying, these are reasonable rates.
No. No, I apologize. My daughter's in 3rd grade. I ran the rates of Johnson when she was 2. Every year compared it to St. Jerome's, Shanahan. And I handed it to every mother and you want someone to do spreadsheets, I'll come do spreadsheets because I was queen of them. And compared what you could get for what you could get. And you go to get 8 hours at Shanahan, you got 30 minutes more a day at St. Jerome's, you get that at St. Paul's, you get that at Sacred Heart. And it's so much more helpful for you to pick up at 3 o'clock for 2:10. Okay, it's night and day.
Oh, I'm not saying the hours
And
don't,
this is now way more than St. Paul's in Hingham. This is like St. Paul's Hingham is 9 something. Like this is,
So I'm just comparing it to like private preschool programs, not Catholic, not, this is reasonable. Compared to what we just did a rate in the South Shore.
are you talking about like someplace that you go for the whole day though?
Most
Like 7 to 6.
most preschools that are center-based, it's up to 9 hours.
Yeah,
Right,
that's what I'm
7 to
talking about.
No more than 9 hours.
Kids that need it and like can kind of work too. And that's why.
You feel it's too much?
Oh, 100 million %. And this is going back to even pre-COVID. Their numbers were crazy.
If I,
And St. Jerome's worked for a working family pre-COVID. Now, St. Paul's Synchronized doesn't work. And then that number totally doesn't work.
and so the increase for that, that's strictly driven by the cost of the program, the staff. So I mentioned earlier that we think the net benefit of a 5% across the board will be around $120,000 ballpark. For pre-K, the increase, that 5% increase, most of that is just our contractual obligations.
Yeah. So the Weymouth High School childcare is
Breaking.
that just basically filled with staff. There's no more open.
I don't know if, I think it's,
Open public
I think
spots.
only staff have.
I mean, years ago, there used to be.
Staff, yeah.
Okay. And then my other question for both of them, the Weymouth High School is not licensed by EEC, but the childcare here is. Are they able to get the C3 grants? Are they still available? I know it's available to us in the private. Is it still available
I think it's available.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah.
in public
I
anymore?
don't,
So,
we have to check on that. Can you ask me what's that?
yeah.
There's C3 grants?
I could be wrong, Tracy, but I feel like this question came up not too long ago and it was, we'll to get a,
And they've been extended till December. So I was just wondering if they were able to access any of that money.
yeah,
I
let's,
think they're for you.
sorry.
And do they
It's
take,
just for
do they
licensed
take
childcare.
vouchers?
I don't think it's for a public program, but
Yeah,
I'll investigate it.
Yeah, we'll investigate. We don't think it's for the public programs. I think it's just for licensed private.
Childcare
And
providers.
does either one of those programs take vouchers from the state?
No, no longer.
No.
We'll ask that question too.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you.
So I just want to make sure.
Thank you for your input.
Tracy, I'm sorry. So C3 grants.
Where do you?
That's what I thought. Yeah. We'll follow up.
Awesome, thanks. Oh, I have one more question. Go ahead. For the school meals, sorry. Green tea kicks in. We don't get them free anymore? Is that gone?
That's for second meal and adult meal. So every student is entitled to a free breakfast, free lunch. They want to buy a second lunch, they have to pay for the second lunch.
Gotcha.
Probably going away, pending.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Preemptive.
Yeah.
Can we,
And that, sorry, that increase is what the federal rates tell us we have to increase by.
That's helpful. Thank you.
so that's set by the Fed.
That's set by the feds. So we increase at least what they're requiring us to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just a suggestion, maybe on the sheet when we go to vote on it, can we just explain, just annotate
The times.
the,
That was for second lunch.
that it's for like if
Oh,
you,
second
if you take,
Yeah, second meal.
but not to be mistaken for a secondary lunch
Yep, or second drink.
or second dinner. Yeah.
I have one more question. Quarter 5 is optional for students, but summer school may not be, right? Summer school might be students that didn't do that well. They
Same
really,
thing, same thing.
It's both the
Summer
same?
school, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
okay,
They're paying for an online course with the teacher there.
gotcha.
So they don't, it's not mandatory, but they're being guided by their guidance counselor that they're falling behind with credits.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I swear that's enough.
So
Mara was trying to raise her hand.
thank God Maura's on. Maura on there.
Girl,
All of our questions are going to be answered right now.
Yay, hi
Maura's on.
Maura.
Maura can unmute right now.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay. We are not eligible for the C3 grants. You need to be an EEC accredited and licensed program, which we're considered just public schools, so we're not eligible for those.
Thank you.
And then just to comment on the tuition, I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive, and just looking at Sacred Heart School had put out their tuition for the 25-26 school year. Their 5 full-day programs are $99.50, so I kind of think we are going to be in the ballpark with that 5% increase.
Yep. Thank you very much, Maury. Saved us.
Thank you.
the
Thanks for
follow-up.
answering that.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm sorry you don't get the grants.
No, I know.
The time.
Thank you, Maura.
Thank you.
Yep.
Laura. Okay, summarize that.
Yes.
Awesome.
So we're proposing a 5% across the board. Obviously, more conversations on the athletic ability to supplement there through a banner program or something. But again, what we're proposing of the 5%, if we yield 120,000, that's part of our $1.9 million shortfall. We had cut the operating budget. And if we don't do any sort of fee increase, we're then trying to find another potentially 1 to 2 positions in staff to address the shortfall.
And we, okay. Yep, and we look at these every year.
Correct.
Right, so. My question, David. Can you remind me that if somebody wanted to rent the Chapman Auditorium, is that the standard hall rental per hour?
The auditorium,
I just didn't see it as a separate thing.
no, it goes through, goes to Donnie through the,
But we set the rate.
we set the rate, we get the custodial benefit. We get the benefit of the custodial costs.
So what rate what rate are we setting for the Chapman Auditorium? Is it the one?
The custodian one?
Yeah, it was the custodial.
40.
Yeah, 45 now. So 45 per hour we would get, and then whatever additional Donnie charges is going back to his program, the running of the auditorium. So we say that the space at Chapman for the auditorium, we have that MOU with the town about that space. We've agreed that whatever he collects, we get $45 an hour to cover the custodial costs for that space.
So we don't make profit off of
So we're not setting a fee for it.
We set the custodial rate, so we don't set a fee for the auditorium itself. It's part of the MOU with the town that you guys agreed to.
Yep.
Is that as well as the planetarium?
Planetarium, auditorium. The programming is managed by Donnie. Auditorium for Chapman, auditorium for high school, and I believe planetarium all in that MOU.
Was there a question too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yours too, Mary Ellen?
Yep.
Yep, so I mean, that's
It's
you could obviously have
$400 for an hour, 67 seats.
we could
That
have
was
a,
custodian, just in case everyone wants to know.
yep, I mean, we could always revisit the MOU. I'll just say that.
We're negotiating snacks.
Did you want to talk about ESY rates next?
Yes.
So for ESY and ESY substitutes, both these documents, we're proposing increasing the rate 2.5%. The cost of living for those activities, those folks do. So although these rates for substitutes and for ESY are not bargained, we think it's reasonable to apply a cost of living increase for the positions for next fiscal year, which is in line with what other CBAs have for COLA next year.
So these are not the same rates as CBA, the CBA folks.
this is work outside, so the substitute and
So-
the ESY.
If somebody represented by the CBA wants to work ESY, they get their CBA rate.
And that was a change last year to this document
Yep.
as noted with the asterisks.
That's no, yes. Oh, that's so much more clear. So much, more. Thank you.
So there's the rate that has been bargained into two of our bargaining units. So basically, any members of our staff that are in those bargaining units get their contractual rate. If it's someone from outside of Weymouth, they get the rate on this sheet. And we're proposing just to keep with all of the increases for collective bargaining and salaries. We want to encourage our staff to work these programs. We've had this conversation. I will invoke the name of Joni Cedarholm, who we all love very much. My first year in the district, we had lots of conversations around wanting to have the staff that work with our students during the school year work during the summer. So we feel that giving that same cost of living increase, that work is quite reasonable. And I think it's the right thing to do to keep the staff working here during the summer. There's my pitch.
So when these get voted, I'm sorry.
All of these get voted.
May 7th.
Thank you.
Oh, so these are going to go with the fees.
Yes, so we agreed after, I think, last couple of years, administration and school committee. I think Mel and I have agreed that, and, work with Alyssa on this, that all of these, the fees that we charge students and families, the rates that we pay staff for extended school year, substitute, and then the newly created athletic event coverage, all are a vote of the school committee. We want to put these in front of you guys now to have time to discuss, talk about, and then hope for a vote at a future meeting.
Go ahead. I appreciate you saying that, and because we are talking about things going in front of the committee to vote on, I have actually one more athletics question. So now if the softball scoreboard will be in place for the spring season, so can we add in a stipend for a scoreboard operator for softball?
Yeah,
That's
if it wasn't
next.
already there, we definitely
Oh, is it on
make the change to the sheet. It'll match the same price as,
baseball?
yeah, baseball and the other sports. I think it's gonna be $50.
So a good segue. This is our
No.
final piece of our rates update.
Tracy.
Yeah, athletic event coverage. So this is new, although the rates are not new. What's new is that we are now making it part of this process that we review and update. And so as Rob mentioned, help me, Rob, where is,
Band of baseball.
Yeah, right now it's just a site admin.
okay, yep. So we would add one in for,
Right, because the baseball team does it themselves from the dugout.
And now it's a scoreboard.
So
There's a grade 50.
$50.
baseball team does it themselves, Rob?
Yeah, well, they have a clicker that they can use right from the dugout, so a kid that's not playing does it. So if we pay somebody, we pay them the $50. But if we don't pay someone, then they just do it themselves.
So they're,
Those are proposed rates if we need someone to do it. So like a site admin, that's only if myself or Dean or Karen or someone isn't at a game. Like if there's a field hockey game and a soccer game at the same time, then we have to pay someone to go to the field hockey game because I'm at soccer.
Yep.
So that, you're not necessarily paying someone for every single game that's played. I think that's important
That
to
is.
understand.
and so, but this,
So if softball had a team manager and she said, or he said.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the
"Prepare a
clock,
scoreboard,"
then they
probably
would do
wouldn't
the
that.
scoreboard from, because it's a handheld, so they can do it from anywhere. They don't have to sit under,
He's a good old man.
they used to have to sit under the
I know,
scoreboard and
it's
change
like-
the numbers. Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
so we'll add.
You can do it Wi-Fi right from the dugout. So if they have
so this, the 24,600 number, that this is in your budget, just in case you have to pay for
everything on that sheet.
everything. So just going back to the fees and the scary part, there could be a surplus of some extra money. Because we have baseball players clicking the score from their phone.
No, not from the phone.
Well, but no.
No, sorry.
That shouldn't have been controversial.
That gets me nervous. No, there's it's like, it looks like.
From the remote.
I know.
Yeah, from a remote control.
Yep.
But my point,
But
we'll have a surplus maybe.
It could
be.
Yeah.
be a surplus.
But you also, in some events, I'm thinking Braintree events, you might have two people
Easy.
working those jobs. Well,
I get it.
yeah, but working those jobs, you might have two people, like, I'm thinking crowd control for football. It's $100, but you might have three people working
Right.
crowd control, so it's $300 for that night, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 'cause you could have,
Yeah, you might have multiple people working the jobs that are on that sheet.
if there's a high likelihood of something happening, you're gonna.
I think
bump
school
up.
committee should have to,
I would love that.
Crowd control?
Yeah,
Oh.
throw me in.
My hairy,
I got the orange jackets.
my hairy eyeball works really well. I don't have to.
Can you,
really-
so I'm looking at soccer, boys and girls. And so it says clock and then it says clock, JV and varsity. Why is there a difference in rate? Is that two games? Is
You're
that what
doing both, right, Rob?
My eyes are
Yeah,
going.
that one.
I'm sorry, what, can you ask that, what my eyes are going here, so
So,
I need to,
Oh, I think.
You're doing both games.
so you're doing two games, I think.
yeah, you're doing a JV and a varsity game.
So one game is 50, but two is 75?
Yeah, and then three would be 100,
Because you're already there.
based on how
Okay.
long you're there.
Okay, that makes sense.
You wouldn't be doing two games simultaneously for $75.
Okay. You do them, you could do them one after.
They'd be back to back.
Gotcha. Yeah. Any other questions from the committee?
I will make that softball change.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Add that to the sheet.
Very good. Oh, question?
Question? Yes.
Quick question. That 24,000, going back to the 2026 proposal, budget, is that included in the game workers total of 42,300 or is that?
It is.
Included in
Yeah.
42,000?
Some of the, yep, and some of that game worker, yes, you're good.
I'll open it up to the rest of the public now. If anybody wants to come up.
Come on, girls.
Hi. So I know that you work in childcare and I also have a background in childcare. And what? I'm full-time home right now, but talk to me when,
Be an interview.
certified, I will, okay. But realistically, like, I understand that you're saying that the numbers are comparable from like the new Johnson to like a private center. But we're talking about 6 hours and we're talking about 8 hours, which is 2 more hours that I would have my child there. And I have had, my daughter went to Johnson in 2021 and for 3 full days, I paid $517.98. Then my son went in 2023, we paid $543.90 for 3 full days. So then next year, when my youngest son goes to Johnson, I'll be paying $611.11 for the same thing. Like, I'm getting 6 hours. I'm still paying for a half a day for their Tuesday. I'm paying for all vacations. And I know that I would be paying for a vacation in a private center, but at the same time, I would be able to take my own vacation and have to pay for it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm just, if we're not increasing the fees to play sports, I really think that we should need to look at childcare, and this is where they learn. This is their first experience. And if you want them in the Weymouth Public Schools and you want people to send their kid to the new Johnson or WEC, I don't know what to call it. So like, I'm just coming from, I've worked in childcare. I don't send my child to a private daycare or a childcare center that I don't work at. That's my choice. I know what the day is like. I send my child to a public preschool because I know that I would hope that the education is a little bit better. Within saying that, with the 6 hours, I know that you think it's comparable, but I really don't believe it. And I really would hope that you would look at the numbers and think that childcare is expensive enough. We can barely pay for groceries and all these sports that we're spending hours talking about. That please just consider not raising the childcare fees. Because, you know, we are still paying for mortgages and cars and $611 a month. Now, I'm paying that in 10 months. So it's not like I'm paying it in a 12-month period, I'm paying it in a 10 months. So we're talking about 2 less months that I would be paying for a full year at a private center. So.
We can look at, I believe that, like I mentioned, the 5% is what the increase of the cost of the program is. If it's less than that, we can certainly bring that back, but I believe it's close to 5% is what the increase of the cost of the program is.
Okay, I just get frustrated when we talk about it being comparable, but like, there's a lot of things that are not comparable to
totally get
private
that piece,
childcare.
right.
Especially with the times, like the professional development days that I'm still paying for, the vacations that I'm still paying for, in the 2 extra hours or 3 extra hours that I'm not getting. So, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
We can certainly look at that.
Break it down by hour.
Yep.
I was looking at weekly.
Hi, I was talking to some parents about the intramural and the competitive sports. My kid's not at Chapman yet. I can't wait for them to be there. And I think the sports up there is awesome. But I know when I was talking to parents, they're like, we would pay for this. I know we don't want to do user fees, but they're like, we would absolutely pay for this. So they wish that maybe these conversations were actually happening them at that level, like kind of going out there, explaining to them these shortfalls. And maybe it's like, let's not do middle school sports this year, but explain to them and say, why don't we get a really awesome booster middle school program going? And we say, here, if you guys raise, $2,000 a season, then we're good for next year. I think give parents that goal, then like, it's awesome. Like, I think
has an amazing parent council. They have a
Yeah.
really great involved booster. I think it's just the athletics committee putting that group together.
Yeah.
We're totally on your wavelength.
Yes.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And that's why the focus of the next subcommittee meeting is
That.
literally boosters. And we're hoping that Chapman parents will know that we want them to attend too.
Yeah.
Chapman actually has one for each. They have a fundraising group, parent group for each grade.
That's awesome.
So they do really excellent work. They're very engaged.
Yeah. I feel like that would just deplete that conversation altogether. One other thing that I was thinking of, because I'm always going to come back to STEAM, is how many students overall. I was trying to add up all the students that are part of athletics, and it seemed like 500 in the fall in high school, and then it was like 350 in the winter. Do we know how many in the spring?
We would need numbers, Rob, on individual athletes. Because
Like,
there's gonna be.
If we can, even if we just ballpark, so say like there's 400 in the
Last year was
spring,
1250.
1250 total.
Total, yep.
And how many kids do we have in the 8 elementary schools?
25, 26,
What?
like 25, 2,600, I believe.
So double that.
Sure.
And it's like, we're cutting stuff in elementary, and this is affecting 1,250 students, which I'm a student. My kids all play sports. I played sports. My whole family played sports. We were not a wealthy family. We always will pay for our stuff. I apologize. I love the non-user fee thing, but as a parent, and then I know my kid's getting something, I don't care if you're telling me I have to pay for that, and it means that other kids in my town are getting an education thing. I like that we're using it to fund downfalls or whatever. I'm just trying to put out there that that's 2,500 kids that are gonna, stay in our system, and it's an educational thing, and it's hitting each one of them every day, every week. And sports is sports, and I love sports. I'm not one against sports at all. But I think if we're to come here every week and know that
departments that are getting increases and then those departments that are not getting increases. And that's just my 2 cents. And I can't wait to see the budget with the little line item for the curriculum for specialist 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Can't see, no. Okay. Anyone on Zoom? No, you, am I vague?
No, we have one more, right?
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Did
That's fine.
anybody on Zoom want to comment?
They can
about the
unmute
fees?
themselves right now. If they want to say something.
I'm Seeing, no?
Seeing nothing.
Okay, moving on to pre-budget hearing review.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, get out.
So we will have March 13th hearing. We'll have our full presentation ready then. We just wanted to, Bill and I just wanted to revisit what we talked about last week at Budget Sub and just, again, if people had any other questions, follow-up questions. So our proposed budget is $92 million. It's the 5.27%. We're anticipating revenues to support $90 million. And so our shortfall is the $1.9 million. Last time we met, we talked about, how can we potentially address this shortfall, and it's through reductions in staffing. We talked about the positions we've already not funded for next year for our executive director of elementary ed and director of fine and performing arts. Talked with the elementary instructional coaches, and then the approximately 20 full-time equivalent staff positions at the secondaries. We just discussed increasing fees and then potentially using a small amount of remaining opera funds to help address the shortfall. And again, the shortfall created by increase in costs, the elimination of the ESSER money. There was Mel and I received from MASs, just kind of a statement that, summarizes what we're facing here in Weymouth, which is the perfect storm of fiscal challenges. Federal funding for pandemic has expired. Major expenses are significantly rising, in particular tuitions, transportation, other costs. Chapter 70, the largest source of funding, has not increased at a rate that keeps up with inflation and our needs. In local, not only local, but state, federal, all revenue is declining. So it's not like it's just a Weymouth problem with declining revenue. So that perfect storm of all those factors that we faced last year, and now again this year, as prepare for next year, is what led to the $1.9 million shortfall. And we have our plan to, as of right now, our plan to address it. So just want to summarize that and, repeat that for everyone to ask additional questions. And like I said, Mel and I will be in front of school committee on March 13th to do our full budget presentation.
Brian, can I just add, Danielle, for that? I also I want to thank Brian and Alyssa and Jeremy and the whole team and just where we were a year ago. We've talked about that, and we're just in a very different place of being able to understand our budget, really make some thoughtful decisions, being able to communicate to our community. I thank all of our parents for coming out. It's because it should be a process like this where people are involved, they're hearing what we're thinking. We should never be making decisions in a vacuum that people are hearing, and then we just kind of push out that information. So I really appreciate this kind of process and everybody being a part of it and giving us the feedback, because we are listening to all of the feedback, and we are trying to make the most informed decisions, and that includes all of you, and I really appreciate that.
Learned, as Mel mentioned, we learned a lot from last year's process. We want to be better this year. And again, it's all the groups Mel mentioned. And then, the unions, we've been talking with WEA, we've been talking with, other groups. Is it?
We have a hand.
Oh, hand. So to that point, is the final piece I had is from a point in where we are in the budget process this year, we don't see any changes, at least between now and the hearing. We do have our next budget sub is scheduled for March 19th. There would be nothing new. We're going to do the athletic subcommittee, which will talk more about ancillary revenue. So Mel and I, our recommendation would be that we would not have the March 19th subcommittee, and the next scheduled subcommittee meeting would be April 2nd, knowing that we have the hearing on on the 17th. on the-
Am I smiling too much?
13th, And the, as much as
second
I
that.
love you folks, I'd love to be here, I think the budget hearing on the 13th and then full committee vote on the 27th. We'll have opportunity to answer more questions and have more dialogue.
I'm also agreeable to that. Is the rest of the committee agreeable to that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all we have.
Okay, I was gonna say, can you bring up the schedule, but,
Oh, thank you. Oh,
you don't need to.
There you go.
Yeah, it's that one. The one that's not highlighted, we will be canceling.
so folks can see here, I know it's small here, but March 13th and 27th. So this meeting here, so as you can see, it was updates, FY26 level service budget, final review. So we had this meeting last year because we still had a lot of work to do in communicating to the committee.
Yep.
A lot of work. We feel like we've done that communication now, so we feel like we're at a point to not have that meeting, just focus on the public full meetings.
I agree. Did you,
Maura has her hand up again.
okay, go ahead, Maura.
Maura should be
Oh,
able to.
hi. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
I just wanted to speak a little bit about, our program is a little bit different than center-based programs, private programs. All of our teachers are DESE licensed. All of our teachers need to have a master's degree. We offer a full complement of specialists, OTs, PTs, speech, school psychologists, counselors, a nurse. So we are very different than private and center-based programs. And I think we offer a Cadillac program. So I just, I like I said, I did do a deep dive of some of our private programs that were in town. We still are going to be a little bit cheaper with the 5% increase. But we really do have, and then most of our teachers are dual licensed. We have severe, moderate disability teachers, and then preschool teachers with and without disabilities license. And they all are DESE licensed. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Maura.
And if I can just touch base on that. So the difference between your program and mine, who is a private, having a DESE license, a bachelor's or a master's degree is not required. We only, and not only, but we are EEC licensed and our staffing is licensed by EEC and do not require the DESE licensing. So there is a difference where you're in a union and you're in a contract. Staffing for private preschools and childcare is not. I do have a question, and maybe Mel, you could answer that. The Weymouth High School, are they, the staff that are in there, are they also part of DESE licensing or are they EEC licensed?
The teaching staff. has
The
DESE
teaching staff,
Teaching staff
DESE
has
licensed.
yeah.
So that
And the
there is a
ESD
difference.
fellow,
So it-
associate's degree.
Although I think they are all fruits, they're very different fruits. Obviously, the private is a longer day, the licensing is different. Does the tuition cover the cost of operating the WEEC? And does the tuition cover the cost of the Weymouth childcare program? Or is that supplemented by the budget?
So we do supplement operating funds for pre-K because we have special ed.
The special ed
Yeah, we
part,
can't charge anyone with an IEP for tuition.
right, that makes sense. But does the tuition cover the cost of a regular preschooler coming those 6,
Yes.
or those kind of, it's not really 6 hours for the most part. For the 5 full days, that's the 8:15 to 2:15. 3 days, the 2 days, those programs that are just strictly preschool, does the tuition cover the cost of operating and paying for the staff
Correct.
of those programs?
Yes, and that's why the increase we're seeking, the 5% will
Okay.
cover the increase of the cost to run the program, but unrelated to the special ed component that is funded by the operating
Correct.
budget.
And that's same with our Weymouth High School?
Yes.
It's covering the cost
Yeah,
of
do we have
running the
any-
program?
Do we have any operating costs for childcare? I think it's all funded by the tuitions. It is, yep, even down to the snacks.
Okay,
Yes.
so, okay.
You can do look at it.
It's good to know. Those are the most important things.
Snacks are important.
Okay, Thank you. Thank you, Maura, again.
Thank you, Tracy.
At this time, I'll open it up to public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to comment, please come up to the table.
Question, sorry, Brian, can you pull up the last slide you had that showed the cuts, the kind of budget summary proposal?
Yes, let me just share so folks can see it here. This one or?
Up
This
here,
one?
yeah, thank you. So when you're talking about the deficit.
Yep.
You're proposing this to the town side, already accounting to make up the deficit with these cuts. Am I understanding that
It's a
correctly?
good question. We're anticipating that we're not going to get the revenues to support a 5.2% increase.
Okay, so I would like to encourage everyone to please ask for what we need, because I can tell you, I've had conversations with Mayor Headland where he's boasting that he's never cut the school budget. And he's hiding behind that because we're preemptively cutting it for him.
So
I would just really encourage that if we need that, actually, I think it was 2 slides down.
We are
If you
asking
slide
for
down,
it.
okay, if you see that, the shortfall, I
Yeah.
really hope that we are making sure that that is put in and we are asking for it so that he can no longer say, I didn't do it, which is what he said to me last week. And we can say, no, this is what we need, and if we don't get it, you did cut it.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting in our budget book what the cost would be to run the district next year, which includes level service, plus these other areas that we've talked about. And just from what we're seeing with revenues, we're anticipating that, and that's what we're building the cut on. But to your point, this
Okay,
is.
but I just wanted to make sure that's, okay, we're anticipating if we have to, we can switch gears, but we are asking for that money. So if it is not met, it would be declined by the town side.
So
Yeah,
we're
I know.
asking for 92,079,
The 5.27.
the
We are
5.27.
Yeah, that's what it'll cost, including, compliance positions, both this year, next year. The fact that we're using transportation circuit breaker, one-time funding, which is by default a structural deficit. The ask is this because this is what it would cost to cover all of this next year. We're realistic and we know that we see the same revenues that they're looking at. So we're just, and and I'm glad the mayor's talking to folks. We with the mayor's office quite often in council, but to answer last year, we did not do that.
Okay, I just wanted.
Can I follow up on
Yeah.
that? That 92, go back to the slides before. That 90, keep going.
Yeah.
Next one up.
So here's the 90, so
Okay,
here's the 92.
Right,
Here's the 92.
Keep
The budget
going.
book will detail all that out and then, yep, sorry, Tracy.
so these cuts right here, reducing staff, is that
It's already taken out of the.
If we don't get the 90.
if we don't get
Don't
it.
get
we don't get the
We
90?
just have to have a plan,
that's
so
like
we're
a-
not sitting here saying, what are we
And
doing?
it's
That
easier
makes
to
sense.
go-
But I
We don't want him to
just
know that we have a
So,
plan.
right, so in the flow of it, that would be like an addendum that we
We
would
also
show.
want to be
Like, we
transparent.
would show, like, this is what.
If we don't get the 92?
If we don't get the 92.
We think this is like kind of where the town revenues will fall. We think, and it's only conversations with the town, right? Not me, and what we're seeing from the state, which is really nothing. So, could it be somewhere between this number and this number? Maybe. We don't know yet. Because we still have to go through the.
And I
town
do feel
process.
like this should be like behind closed doors. We're asking for the 92. We have a plan if we don't get it, but we don't want them to know we have a plan.
But they know.
I know.
Yeah,
It's
You have to have a plan.
Pretend that we.
Have a plan.
I even.
Not a good plan, it's a good plan, I mean, it's.
So the parents' plan should be that the parents show up and say, we've been doing all this work with staff and you have to make the decision. You have to be the bad guy,
Put it on.
okay?
Yeah.
Because we know that you guys don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah,
And it's also.
But I think we have to be fiscally responsible
Yeah,
It's what's
for
available.
a plan.
Right? It's not we have a lot of money in a pot and we're choosing.
Yeah, we don't
not
want to play
give you it.
mom
Right?
against the
That's-
dad.
so, I mean, that's
Not allowed to
where,
in my house.
that's where Mel and I are coming from. Is look at
Yeah, no, that makes
last
sense.
year. Last year, revenues were, I think, were $4.5, $5 million. And we got most of that. This year, and that's based on a 3.8%. And this year, next year, if it's 3%, the town has, say it's $3 million, we're asking for $4.5 million. So that's, it's like, we gotta be, we're gonna ask what we think we need, but we have to understand that I don't see a scenario like every other district that we we can survive without cuts. It's not, I mean, it's, because I'll be honest, if the town gave us more money than this, what I know about revenues, if the town gave us more money than this, it's gonna be one-time money, which still creates a structural deficit in the budget. So next year, instead of potentially cutting 1%, 2%, 3%, we'll be cutting 4%, 5%, 6%. So that's where I appreciate the advocacy and
Right.
100%, they keep doing what you're doing. We can't tell you not to have conversations and push for it, but that's just what Mel and I are coming from. So, but thank you.
Everybody paid it. Everybody taxed it.
Yep, absolutely.
Anybody else from the public that's here that would like to come up and comment?
Thanks.
No? We're good. Anybody from Zoom?
Can let people, they can unmute themselves.
You can unmute if you would like to public comment on Zoom.
More, your hand is up, but is that from the last time? Or the high five?
Oh, sorry. Maybe that was a high five.
Oh my God.
Thank you again, Mario. You were great tonight. Appreciate it.
She's still over here.
I don't know how.
That's okay.
I'll help you out more. You got it.
I am seeing nothing. I will take a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.